Oh man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. And welcome to another instalment of The Villain Files. Tonight's villain is known as the terror of all steam engines. 10 out of 10 for devious deeds and brutal strain, a blast from the past who hates steam engines, and a heavy metal monster. This is Diesel 10. Diesel 10, or simply Diesel as known by others, is an evil diesel engine with a semi-sentient rooftop hydraulic claw, which he has named Pinchy. He once visited the island of Sodor a long time ago, and caused trouble for the steam engines while he was there. During his visit he found Lady, the engine responsible for keeping Sodor alive, and chased her, making her crash. Several years later, Diesel 10 came back to Sodor when the Fat Controller was on holiday, intending to destroy Lady forever. He was first seen by Thomas and Gordon when he raced past them at Calaboon Station, and brought his two lapdogs, Splatter and Dodge, to the railway, who were present when he was scheming. He caused several problems for the steam engines, such as dumping sneezing powder around Tidmouth sheds and later destroying the scaffolding that had been placed beside the shed. Diesel 10 attempted to make Mr. Conductor tell him where the lost engine was, but was scared away by a bag of sugar, which is somehow his weakness. After spying on Thomas and Percy, Diesel 10 discovers that there's a set of buffers somewhere on the island that leads to a magic railroad where Lady may be. As he schemes to put Mr. Conductor's lights out, Toby distracts him with his bell, causing his claw to smash into the shed where he, Splatter and Dodge were, and the roof crashes onto them. When Mr. Conductor travelled across Sodor to find the windmill, Diesel 10 found him and held him over the Big Dipper, intending to drop him. However, Mr. Conductor managed to escape by cutting one of the hydraulics hoses in his claw with a pair of wire cutters, causing him to fling Mr. Conductor across the island into the windmill. Diesel 10 was later present at the coaling plant, where he was covered in coal when he was teaching Splatter and Dodge how to stop being stupid. After Junior flew in the air after riding on the windmill cells, he landed on Diesel 10's cab, who raced across the island and to the smelter's yard, where he tried to push James and Junior into the melting pit. Fortunately, Junior and James managed to escape using the last of the former's gold dust. After Lady was brought back up to steam and returned to Sodor, Diesel 10 found her and began to chase her, Thomas and Burnett Stone across the island until they reached the viaduct, but not before Splatter and Dodge betrayed him for some reason. Lady, Burnett and Thomas managed to cross the viaduct safely while it was collapsing, but it had already done so by the time Diesel 10 came over and he plunged into a barge of sludge below the bridge, where he was sent away in disgrace. Diesel 10 will be absent from the show until his next appearance in a certain TV special that I have a certain hatred for. But because I'm here to talk about the history of Diesel 10, I'm going to talk about his appearance in Cool Engines, but consider it non-canon, for obvious reasons. Diesel 10 later returned to Sodor years later under unknown circumstances. It can be assumed, however, that the Fat Controller decided to give him a second chance. He is seen working at the scrapyard, loading piles of scrap into trucks. The very sight of his return caused Thomas and Percy to shudder in fright. While the steam and diesel engines were holding a meeting at the coaling plant about working together to finish the Sodor airport, Diesel 10 was not invited by Thomas because Thomas was too frightened and was sure that Diesel 10 would never help the steam engines anyway. Soon the airport was nearly complete with its construction until a water tower collapsed, cracking the runway and blocking the line. With Harvey all the way on the other side of the island, Thomas went to ask Diesel 10 for assistance. After some hesitation, Diesel 10 agreed to help clear the wreckage. After Thomas was found prior to the reopening of Great Waterton, Diesel 10 was among the diesels present at the quarry when they heard the news. Now we return to canon, where Diesel 10 will make a comeback in style. And boy was that style worth the wait. Later, when the Sodor Search and Rescue Centre was opened, Diesel 10 was present at the rescue centre's grand opening, standing on a cliffside overlooking the rescue centre and the steam engines below, threatening to return. When Percy was experiencing a fallout with Thomas, Diesel 10 decided to manipulate him into helping him restore the Vicarstown Diesel Works, by having him visit the Diesel Works and befriend him. Diesel 10 managed to convince Thomas to arrive at the Diesel Works, where he was held hostage while he, Percy and the other Diesels went to the Sodor Steamworks. Once there, Diesel 10 betrayed Percy and took over the Steamworks. Percy returned to the Diesel Works to rescue Thomas when he noticed that sparks from Pinchy had set the main building ablaze. Percy brought Bell and Flynn to put out the fire. After Thomas was saved and the fire was put out, Percy, Kevin and the rest of the steam team went to the Steamworks. After a brief argument with the Diesels, the Fat Controller arrived, and after being told about the state of the Diesel Works, agreed to have the place restored. Diesel 10 and the other Diesels worked alongside the steam engines to restore the Diesel Works, and he became the new head of the Diesel Works, with Den and Dart taking over in his absence. After a couple of more years of absence after Day of the Diesels, Diesel 10 wouldn't come back to the show until a Christmas episode in the new series, head written by Andrew Brennan. When it was Christmas time, Diesel 10 became jealous of the steam engines for having more decorations at Tidmouth sheds than he and the Diesels had at the Diesel Works. He began stealing decorations from the sheds to bring them to the Diesel Works, enlisting the reluctant Paxton to help him. Diesel 10 was caught by Percy, who chased him back to the Diesel Works with the rest of the steam team, where Diesel 10 found out that the Fat Controller had in fact had Paxton deliver some decorations to the Diesel Works, so he gave the decorations back to the steam team. But as most of them had been damaged, he gave the Diesel Works his decorations to them the next day, as he and the other Diesels considered Sydney to be a good enough decoration. In the Series 22 episode What Rebecca Does, Diesel 10's claw makes an appearance in one of Rebecca's fantasies, which is a very weird fantasy if you ask me. Diesel 10 is an evil, conniving, manipulative, bullying and raving diesel locomotive. He absolutely despises steam engines, and will call them taunting names like Puffball and Teapot. He is Sodor's strongest but not quite largest diesel, his power being enforced by his slightly malfunctioning claw, Pinchy. He can use this deftly, and is even able to use it to make a sculpture. Pinchy, though, seems to have a mind of its own, as has been shown to punch Diesel 10 on the face from time to time, which he loathes. All engines, steam and diesel alike, fear or respect him. Despite his brutality, he will help sometimes since the Fat Controller brought him back, but only when it suits his personal interest. Although he rarely shows it, he has shown to have a good side to him, as most people do. In Thomas and the Magic Railroad, Diesel 10 was originally going to be voiced by Keith Scott, but the test audiences rejected him thinking he'd be too scary, so he was replaced with Neil Crone, who gave a Brooklyn-type accent to this hilarious character. When he returned in Calling All Engines, he was voiced by British narrator Michael Angelus and American narrator Michael Brandon. When he was set to return in the CGI series, he was originally going to be voiced by Rupert Digges in the work prints, but was later replaced with Matt Wilkinson in the final project, who had been voicing the character ever since. After his big screen and TV appearances, Diesel 10 would also appear in some magazines and a few books every now and then. Outside of the TV series, Diesel 10 would make a couple of appearances in magazines and books, including the book Diesel 10 Means Trouble, which revealed the fact that Diesel 10's claw would have emerged from his roof in the film. But due to test audiences' rejections, that scene was cut, and this book is the only way you could see that happening. He also appeared in Thomas and the Magic Railroad print studio, where if you click on him you can make jigsaw puzzles. He also appeared in a Thomas Land ride in Japan, at one point being set up in a Thomas and the Magic Railroad scene, and then another point being set up in a scene from Day of the Diesels. And why they've never had something like this with Diesel 10 in the UK in Thomas Land, I'll never know. He even appeared in what I consider a silly story, being Thomas and the Beanstalk, which, as I said, I consider to be quite silly. Diesel 10 may have started off in a movie that was considered a box office bomb when it was first released, but to me he's an important part of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, because he was part of the original Thomas from my childhood. In my mind, Diesel 10 is, always has, and always will be an important part of Thomas the Tank Engine, as he was part of the classic show that I grew up with, and if the show has plans to bring him back in the future, I hope that they do him justice and stick to the evil character that he is. but whether he does return or not to bring hell to the engine slides on Sodor, we'll just have to wait and see. But you can bet that wherever he is up to no good, and has big, nasty plans for the steam engines. And that's all there is you need to know about Diesel 10. Look out for more villain files in the future. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Oh man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. How many people out there remember Lilo and Stitch? Ever since the first Lilo and Stitch film was released in 2002, it's become one of the most popular and iconic films in the Disney franchise, leading to a spin-off movie which led to a TV series, which had a TV finale movie for direct-to-DVD, and a direct-to-video sequel. Various spin-offs included one from Japan and one from China. So needless to say, Lilo and Stitch has become a really huge franchise as far as Disney franchises go over the years. And with Lilo and Stitch's popularity over the years, there's one character that's become even popular than Lilo, believe it or not. And that character is Angel. Angel is the 624th experiment created by Jumba in the Lilo and Stitch franchise. She made her first appearance in the Lilo and Stitch TV series and would carry on to make appearances in spin-offs, merchandise, and even appearances at Disney theme parks. So how exactly did Angel become more popular than Lilo when it comes to merchandise and other things based on Lilo and Stitch? Well, the best way to find out is to start from the beginning. Angel was designed to turn people and experiments from good to evil by singing her siren song. When she made her introduction appearance in Lilo and Stitch the TV series, she was secretly working for Vagantu, former captain of the Galactic Alliance, who had a plan to turn all the experiments that Lilo and Stitch had previously turned good back into evil again for his evil purposes. While doing this, Angel attempted to use her song on Stitch, but found out that her song has no effect on experiments that were created after her, like Stitch and Reuben. Eventually, she brought all the experiments she turned evil back to Gantu's ship, and led Stitch there so he could be destroyed there permanently. But when the now evil experiments were about to finish Stitch off, Angel, realizing how much she really loved him, turned the experiments back to good before they could finish him off. But the two's happy ending was very short-lived when Gantu captured her in a net, and we wouldn't see her again besides a cameo appearance in an episode called Remy, where she's seen with other experiments in Lilo's dream. Ever since her introduction in the first episode and her cameo in another episode, Angel wouldn't make a big appearance again until the final episode of the show. In the final episode, Snafu, Reuben cleverly tricked the captured Angel into singing her song backwards to turn him good, while it was being recorded by the former. Gantu then planned to play the recording backwards on the island to avert the rehabilitated experiments to evil, but his plan failed due to Experiment 120 stealing the tape recording. Meanwhile, Lilo and Stitch launched a rescue mission on Gantu's ship to free Angel and the other captured experiments, but were foiled by Snafu. However, Stitch's love for Angel gave her the strength to break out of her containment orb and free Stitch and the others. After that escape mission went successfully, Stitch and Angel left on a date. Even after the final episode of the show, Angel showed up again in the finale movie Leroy and Stitch. In the finale movie Leroy and Stitch, the first 624 experiments, including Angel, were rounded up by Leroy and taken to a stadium to be destroyed. However, Lilo, Stitch, Jumbo, Peakley, Reuben and Gantu arrived before the experiments could be destroyed. Angel participated in the following battle between the experiments and the Leroy clones by using her martial arts skills to knock them out. particularly when a group of Leroy clones attack her boyfriend Stitch. However, the Leroys soon gained the upper hand in the battle, but were defeated when Lilo, Stitch, Ruben and several other experiments performed the song Aloha, which caused the Leroy army to shut down due to the original Leroy's failsafe. And it didn't end there for Lilo and Stitch nor Angel, because she became one of the main characters in the Stitch anime. In the Stitch anime, it is shown that Angel has become an international singing sensation. She appears a lot more in this series compared to the original series, and her attitude has shifted into that of a spoiled celebrity, which I find really shitty because that's not the character Angel was in the original show. But I will give them credit for at least giving her more screen time in this anime show, despite it being pretty crap compared to the original cartoon. Angel is shown to be seductive in the original show. She is usually friendly, but sometimes she could be downright nasty. Since being reformed, her sweeter side shows a lot more. She has a very feminine voice, and has been noticed flirting with the other experiments until eventually Stitch wins her heart. Oddly enough, Ruben has a crush on Angel, though she has shown extreme displeasure towards him. Angel was taught the meaning of love and ohana by Lilo and Stitch, and would do just about anything for them. She has even helped Stitch out of trouble on several occasions. Her song causes any former evil person or experiment to revert back to evil. She can also sing her song backwards, which can have the opposite effect, turning evil people in experiments to good. Her only weakness is that the experiments created after her, like Stitch, Ruben and Leroy, are immune to the song. In the original series, Angel was voiced by Tara Strong, who gave the character a Scottish accent. Then in the anime she was voiced by Kate Higgins, who I will admit isn't that bad, but she's no Tara Strong. Tara Strong will always be the original Angel to me. Ever since then, Angel's become pretty much an icon for Lilo and Stitch. She'd even gotten more products than Lilo had, believe it or not. Outside of the TV series and the anime series, Angel made a couple of other appearances in other forms of media, including Stitch Meets High School Musical, having a little cameo in the short The Origin of Stitch, and even showing up in various Disney theme parks and getting tons of merchandise based on her, like cuddly toys, mugs and other accessories. In fact, I love Angel so much that I actually got her a cuddly toy of her. Ain't she cute? And that's quite insane considering the fact that she's not the main character of the series. But nevertheless, she has left quite a huge impact on many fans. One of those impacts would include fan art on the internet, which I won't show here, but you'll just have to see them for yourself to find out. So what exactly does make Angel popular in Lilo and Stitch? Well, part of it may be to do with the fact that she was voiced by Tara Strong in the original show, and it might just be the impact she's had on many fans of the show. One reason for her popularity could be the fact that she looks almost exactly like Stitch, but with a few differences. Angel's appearance is quite similar to Stitch's appearance, except with some obvious differences, like making her body look more feminine, giving her pink fur, the antennas on her head, and even giving her little eyelashes to make her look feminine. It's one of those experiments designs that's quite similar to Stitch, but not too like Stitch that it's sort of like a clone. It's enough differences to be her own character, and it's probably one of the most recognisable character designs in the show. Each experiment from the show is very different from the other in terms of appearances, personality and abilities. And Angel's appearance is similar to Stitch's, that it could be one of the most recognisable appearances since she looks almost like Stitch. Another reason could be the fact that Angel and Stitch have become an icon for Valentine's Day. I mean, when you look at some of their merchandise, and as well as compilation videos on YouTube, it's very Valentine's Day-ish. They even got Angel and Stitch mugs with hearts as handles. If that's not Valentine's Day, I don't know what is. There's also the fact that you've seen them together a lot at the Disney theme parks. Wherever there's Stitch in a Disney theme park, there's usually Angel alongside him. So it's safe to say that this Disney couple is almost as iconic as Mickey and Minnie Mouse. But whatever the reason is, Angel was one of the most memorable characters in the Lilo and Stitch franchise, by many, including myself. And her relationship with Stitch is one of the most memorable and likeable ones in TV series history. You may even remember that I listed it on my top 10 love stories a few years ago. I just love it that much. But if you have your own theories about why Angel is so popular in Lilo and Stitch, then leave your comments down below and let me know what you have to say. Whatever the reasons are for Angel's popularity, she's one of the most famous characters in Lilo and Stitch's history and will never be forgotten anytime soon. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks. cute toy.
Oh man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. With the box office success of the Lego Movie, it only made sense to do more movies and shorts based on the film. The first one being the Lego Batman movie starring Will Arnett's Batman, the second one being the Lego Ninjago movie centered around the Ninjago franchise, a 4D adventure film at Legoland theme parks, as well as a couple of shorts and TV commercials and whatnot based on the characters. They've even made some video games based on the movies, with the Lego Movie video game, Lego Dimensions featuring the Lego Movie and the Lego Batman movie as level packs, and the Lego Ninjago movie, and the soon-to-be-released Lego Movie 2 video game. And then this year we got to the Lego Movie 2, or the Lego Movie 2 the second part, depending on which region you're from. But before the movie was even released, there was actually a Turkish Airlines video with the characters doing safety checks on the airplanes.
Attention to all passengers on this flight. We're gonna have a good time in the air tonight. It's some party in the sky, let's pack our dreams and fly. It's some party in the sky, let's pack our dreams and fly.
On the 1st of August 2018, a short film marketed as a promotional tie-in and teaser to the Lego Movie 2, titled Turkish Airlines Safety Video with the Lego Movie characters. It was an airline safety video featuring characters from the Lego Movie franchise and was developed as part of a partnership between Warner Brothers and Turkish Airlines. The video is presented by Emmett and Lucy while featuring cameo appearances from multiple characters across the different areas of the franchise. As you'd expect from anything by the Lego Movie franchise, it's funny, got the great characters we all know, and has some of the jokes and references from the previous films. And they talk about the basic safety features of flying on an airplane, like stowing your luggage, putting on your seatbelts, no smoking, turn off your electronic devices, put your devices on flight mode, and whatnot, and all that, and evacuation procedures. But it's more fun here because they use the Lego Movie characters to demonstrate this. Like they have Emmett and Lucy going through the basics, Will Arnett's Batman doing a hilarious celebrity cameo, doing the no smoking thing, and of course being his same old egotistical self.
Batman, you want to sit next to me?
No, I fly biz class.
There's a hilarious father-son moment between Lloyd and Lord Garmadon. There's a very catchy song about safety, played by Unikitty, who I'm sure was voiced by Alison Bray for this one.
Stop! It's gonna get stuck in my head. No one wants to hear a song about safety.
They even give some of the DC heroes like Flash, Superman and Green Lantern a spotlight in this one. Obviously because the actors must have been busy at the time, they could only get Will Arnett and probably Alison Bray to do their characters, while all the other characters were done by imitation actors trying to do impressions of the other actors. The airline safety videos are a hilarious combination of the many characters from the Lego Movie franchise, and it's just a great fun video to watch if you're about to fly on an airplane or just want to see some more Lego Movie hilarity. And the first safety video got so popular that when the movie was released, they decided to do another one with characters from the first three movies, as well as characters from the sequel. Yeah, the first airline safety video was so popular that on the 7th of February 2019 another one was released with sequel characters. But they spiced this one up a little bit by having one of the executives at the Warner Brothers studio asking the characters to do another safety video, and they spiced it up even more by having Batman himself direct it. And like the first one, they go through the various safety features, no smoking, put on your seatbelt, evacuation procedures, safety, and so on and so forth. But to spice it up a bit, they have Batman take all the characters to different countries around the world to do all these safety checks. They go to Japan for Unikitty's talk on air flight safety mode and switching off electronic devices, which is actually really fitting since Unikitty is quite like an anime character when you look back at it.
Set phones and all electronic devices to so flight mode must be switched off. I said turn them off.
They even give Rex Danger Vest, General Sweet Mayhem and Queen Whatever Wanabe their time in the spotlight for this one, which made sense since this video was made the day before the LEGO Movie 2 was even released in cinemas. And while they still got Will Arnett to voice Batman for this one and the original actors for Sweet Mayhem and Queen Whatever Wanabe, this time they couldn't get Alison Bray to do Unikitty, so they got Tara Strong to do it instead. Which makes sense since she voices the character in the Cartoon Network TV show. Yeah, while they still got Will Arnett to voice Batman for this one, they managed to get the original actors for Sweet Mayhem and Queen Whatever Wanabe to come in to do this, but like the first one, the original actors for Lucy and Emmett didn't show up, and they didn't even get Alison Bray to do Unikitty, instead getting Tara Strong to do the voice. Which really does make sense since she voices the character in the show on Cartoon Network. But despite the lack of original voice actors coming in to do this, the shorts more than make up for it by having great humour and great animation. In fact, the more I look at it, the animation looks exactly on par with the movies on the big screen. Almost as if the original studios and animation companies that worked on the big screen movies actually worked on niche shorts. Like, say, compare this to, say, the DFS Winter Sale advert for the LEGO Movie 2. The animation there is keeping with the LEGO humour, but it just doesn't look as high quality as the movies do. And when you look at the Turkish Airlines videos, the animation looks exactly like it came from the big screen movies. So it's pretty clear that they must have used the original animation studio to do these shorts. And that's just a great touch. Like the first airline safety video for Turkish Airlines, the second one was funny and had a lot of references to the previous LEGO movies. Like the first airline safety video, the second one was a big hit with many fans and people travelling on Turkish Airlines. It makes me wonder if they're going to do future ones tying into future LEGO movies in the franchise. But whether it does or not, we'll just have to wait and see. These Turkish Airlines safety videos are so hilarious that it just makes you want to watch them again and again and again. As everything tied into the LEGO Movie franchise does. The movies, the shorts, the TV adverts and so on and so forth. Whether you're travelling with Turkish Airlines or not, these two airline safety videos are a great way to get you hyped up for the movies and to go flying on an airplane. And I highly recommend them if you haven't seen them already. They have great comedy as you'd expect from the LEGO Movie franchise and anything that's involved in it. And they're just a great fun to watch if you want to watch stuff like this. So if you haven't seen any of these airline safety videos yet, definitely check them out. They're worth a watch, and you won't be disappointed with their hilarity. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Oh no, not this song! No!
Yes!
No! It's the party in the sky, let's pack our dreams and fly. It's the party in the sky, let's pack our dreams and fly. This is gonna get stuck in my head.
It's a party in the sky with Turkish Airlines.
I said turn them off.
Oh man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. How many people here besides me remembers the classic BBC comedy Porridge? Porridge is a 70s British sitcom starring Bonnie Barker and Richard Beckinsale. It broadcast on BBC One from 1974 to 1977. The programme ran for 3 series, including 2 Christmas specials. It's one of the many shows that made Bonnie Barker famous. The series was followed by a 1978 sequel, Going Straight, which saw Barker reprising his character as he tries to avoid getting back to prison. Porridge was later revived in 2017 under the same name as the one spin-off Christmas special in 2016, and it focused on Fletcher's grandson Nigel Fletcher, played by Kevin Bishop. And over the years, Porridge has basically become a British cult classic, and is one of the many shows that Ronnie Barker is most famous for. And the last thing to come from the original Porridge, before the new show came up, was the Porridge movie in 1979. The 1979 movie based on the television series was the last Porridge project to be made before the 2017 remake. It brought back pretty much all of the original actors, including Ronnie Barker, Richard Beckinsale, Fulton McKay, and many others. It was also one of the last appearances by Richard Beckinsale, the actor who played Gopper, before he died in March 1979. So how is this movie adaptation of Porridge compared to the original TV series? Well, let's find out. Life moves by at HM Slave Prison on a day-to-day basis. The newly arrived and violent armed robber, Oakes, played by Barry Rutter, approaches Slave Prison's Mr. Big, Harry Grout, played by the late Peter Vaughan, and using the cut from his last job before being caught, asks for his escape to be arranged. Grouty sets the price, then begins making arrangements. Grout starts forcing Fletcher, played by Ronnie Barker, to persuade the prison governor to allow the inmates versus celebrities football match to boost the prisoner morale and put Slade on the map. Fletcher gets his new prison officer, Mr. Beale, played by Christopher Goodwin, to make the suggestion to tough officer Mr. Mackay, played by Fulton Mackay, who approaches the governor and is accepted. Fletcher then becomes the prison's team manager, and Grout next insists that Oakes be on the team. The celebrity team arrive on a coach. During the match, Oak fakes an injury and is taken to the changing rooms where he meets with the coach driver, revealed as an accomplice. Shortly afterwards, Gopper, played by Richard Beckinsale, is concussed on the field, so Fletcher takes him to the changing rooms. Taking no chances, Oakes forces Fletcher and the dazed Gopper into the coach's luggage compartment at a gunpoint, then drives out of the prison. Oakes meets further accomplices, and they drive the three inmates away in another vehicle. Meanwhile, the prison officers have discovered the escape and the police are searching for the coach, though the prison officers' attempt to help isn't well met, as no one can explain how they let three inmates drive out of the front door. Fletcher tells Oakes that they don't want to escape, as he and Gopper only have a short time left to serve, and that they won't tell anyone Oakes' plan because it's them and us. Oakes releases them and they find a barn to catch their breath. After that, Fletcher and his pal Gopper plan to break back into Slave Prison. Well, I never thought that'd be something I'd hear Fletcher say. So how is the movie Porridge compared to the TV show? It's just as good as the TV show in my opinion. The movie was made during the height of Porridge's popularity. And as you all know, making a movie based on a TV series is not an easy task. Just ask most of the movies that have been released today.
We've got to have money.
But having the same writers and same actors and same directors come on board is a big step up. And it shows that there's a step in the right direction for a movie like this when the same people work on it. Getting the same actors and pretty much the same writing team to come in and do this movie is a good step forward. I mean, that keeps in true with the original TV series. And the movie doesn't disappoint with bringing us the laughs that you've come to expect from the TV series. Pretty much every character from the show gets their time in the spotlight in this movie. There's Ronnie Barker, who plays Norman Stanley Fletcher, the main character of this TV series as well as the film. He's the kind of prisoner who likes to keep his nose clean, do his time and never let the bastards grind him down. He's the man who knows everything about prison life and adjusts to it very easily since the first episode. And he's always one that gets on Mr. Mackay's nerves and takes advantage of Mr. Balacloff's good nature. Ronnie Barker has made a big name for himself in many of the shows he's been in, including the two Ronnie sketch show, Open All Hours and many others. But his role as Fletcher in Porridge is one of his most memorable and iconic.
Do you see yon screw with his look so vain, with his brand new keys on his brand new chain, with a face like a ferret and a pea for a brain, and his end on his whistle in the morning.
There's also some great character development for Fletcher that once he's out of prison he wants to get back inside to avoid getting into trouble with the governor. Most criminals who would break out of prison would really want to stay out of prison. But it's very interesting that Fletcher would want to break back into prison, since it shows that he's a man who's willing to pay his debt to society. And Ronnie Barker plays his part superbly, and it's just hard to imagine anybody else as the character. There's Lenny Gopper, played by Richard Beckinsale, Fletcher's new cellmate, who has been a friend of his since the first episode of Porridge. He's young and naive and wants to go straight as soon as he makes parole. Gopper's the sort of good-natured kind of person who wouldn't do any wrong. Except at some points he does do a bit of sneak thieving behind the prison officers' backs. This movie would be one of Richard Beckinsale's last performances before he passed away. And it's a real shame too, because if he hadn't passed away they could have done so much more with Porridge. Like perhaps a second series of Going Straight or something like that. So it's a real shame that the actor passed away not long after this movie came out, but it's a good reminder of his talent. There's Mr. Barakoff, played by Brian Wilde, who most people would remember as Foggy in Last of the Summer Wine. He's a good-natured police officer who most of the prisoners take advantage of. He's the kind of officer who sees the good in all prisoners and wants to make sure that they're ready for going back into society.
I want you to set that an example. Obviously, it's been foolish to finish up inside here, but I want you to show him that with a bit of graft you can make a success in his life.
And as I said, Fletcher usually takes advantage of his good nature by asking him for favours behind other officers' backs. There's Mr. Mackay, played by Fulton Mackay, the strictest officer in Slave Prison, and the #1 adversary of Fletcher. He's a strict stickler for the rules and regulations of Slave Prison, and if he had his way, would see that the prisoners' lives are made of misery. And the actor just brings that Scottish charm to the character that we all know him for.
Come where the hands are clapping, come where the toes are tapping, come where the jocks are strapping down. If you want to sing, I suggest you form a Slave Prison Glee Club.
And even though he's a right bastard at times, you still find him a very likeable character because he's just so funny. I especially love how his mouth tends to open mostly on one side of his mouth. That's just pretty clever and hilarious. And you could say that the main villain of this movie is Harry Grout, played by Peter Forhan, who's the typical badass prisoner who secretly gets his own way behind prison walls. I mean, think about it, he has good facilities in his cell, he somehow gets out of doing his chores, and he just makes other prisoners' lives live in hell by forcing them to do favours for him, and then makes them pay the price if they don't do it for him.
My name's Harry Grout. Don't think we've had the pleasure. These are my friends Samson and Delilah. Samson got his nickname because of the muscles, and she got hers because of her striking resemblance to Hedy Lamarr.
And he's usually always asking Fletcher to take part in some of his schemes. And Fletcher knows how to stay on Grouty's good side and informs any newcomers to stay away from his bad side, and to try not to get involved with him at all, as he's known Grouty for a long time and knows what he's capable of. Harry Grout's basically the kind of prisoner who seems to run the show behind the police's back. And he's the kind of prisoner you would never want to meet in real life, or even on the streets for that matter. So he could be seen as a very unlikable guy, but because of the way his character is played, he comes across as a very likable character despite all the nasty things he does. I feel like all the characters from the show get the proper amount of screen time in this movie, and the actors do a great job at reprising their roles. The film was one of the most popular movies of 1979 at the British box office, and has become a cult classic just like the TV series. And because we see Fletcher working on the farm, I always used to think that this took place before he lost his job on the farm. But it was revealed that it actually took place 1 year before the final episode of the series, which makes sense since Fletcher and Gopper were cellmates at the time. This is also a huge difference from the show because they would normally perform in front of a live audience, but this was the first time they didn't perform before a live audience. And I've heard from various sources that they filmed a lot of the scenes from the show and the movie in real prison. And that just makes it look authentic. Unlike the television series though, the film is not a BBC production and has no references to the corporation on the DVD release. It was instead distributed by ITC Films. So in conclusion, the Porridge movie is one of the greatest comedy films of all time, and it's one of the few films that manages to stay true to the original source material. Porridge the Movie is a great movie adaptation of the TV series, and has earned its spot as one of the greatest comedy films of all time. So if you haven't seen this film yet, I'd highly recommend it for any Porridge fan and Ronnie Barker fan. You won't be disappointed with the comedy and some of the great writing and acting from all the actors. Porridge is a great comedy film to add to your collection, especially if you're a Porridge fan. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks. Little cutie. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Cut.
But it's gonna be alright. It's coming out good. It's gonna be alright. and turning the tide. There's a piece of me that no one can take, and it's locked up in my head.
Ronnie Corbett has made a big name for himself with many of his roles, and his role as Fletcher is one of his most memorable by many BBC fans and Ronnie Corbett fans. Not Corbett, it's Barker.
If you want to sing, I suggest you form a Slate Prison Glee Club.
Oh, man.
Take that.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here, I need no introduction, but I got one anyway.
The Lego Movie became a worldwide phenomenon when it was released back in 2014, and it was so popular that Batman from the movie got spun off into his own movie, the Lego Batman Movie, and a soon-to-be-released sequel, as well as a movie based on the Ninjago franchise called the Lego Ninjago Movie, and a sequel titled The Lego Movie 2, the second part.
And after Batman got his spin-off movie, the second character to get a spin-off in the form of a TV show was Unikitty.
Unikitty is an animated television series produced by the Lego Group and Warner Bros. Animation for Cartoon Network, starring the character of the same name from the Lego Movie. It first aired on October the 27th in 2017 and has been going strong ever since with 2 seasons so far. The premise of the show sees Princess Unikitty, ruler of Unikingdom, having various misadventures in her land with her little brother Prince Puppycorn, scientist Dr. Fox, bodyguard Hawkadile, and advisor Richard. They also deal with the threats of Master Frown from the neighbouring Frown Town.
So as you'd expect, in my opinion, Unikitty is a great TV show. But what exactly is it that makes it such a great TV show?
The show is seen as an adventure, comedy, family, fantasy musical series, which is quite fitting for this character since we know her from the Lego Movie, and that's the type of character that she is. And of course, having Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the original creators of the Lego Movie, as well as the character being the executive producers, is a step in the right direction, because if anybody knows the character best, they do. Princess Unikitty, voiced by Tara Strong, is the princess of Unikingdom, who is a cat-unicorn hybrid. Like in the movie, she is very happy, playful, cute and upbeat, but has an angry side that she sometimes struggles to control.
One definite winner for this show is getting Tara Strong herself to voice Unikitty. Anything with Tara Strong in it is usually a great project. With one exception, of course.
Some might think it kinda cheap to not have Alison Bray from the original film voice the character in the show, but I honestly love Tara Strong's performance. She gives one of the best performances in this show. Unikitty has become one of my favourite Tara Strong roles, along with many others including Batgirl, Young Celeste, Bubbles, Twilight Sparkle, Raven, Angel, and a bunch of others we don't need to mention. In fact, every time I hear Tara Strong saying her lines for Unikitty, I can tell that she must have been having a hell of a fun time voicing this character. In fact, I think every single actor that's voiced the characters in this show have a lot of fun voicing these characters and saying these hilarious lines. She's pretty much the same old cute unicorn cat that we all know her from the Lego Movie, and for me she steals the show every time she's on screen. You just never know what cute adorable thing she's going to do next. Prince Puppycorn, voiced by Greg Griffin, is Unikitty's younger brother, a pug-unicorn hybrid. He is sometimes clueless and dim-witted, but is also loyal and good-hearted. This character is what I can best describe as the comic relief of the show, doing stupid stuff and acting stupid, but getting a laugh out of everyone that watches him. And unlike other stupid characters whose idiotic antics would get really old really fast, Puppycorn's antics just keep us laughing every time we watch the show.
Puppycorn just makes such a great comic relief for this show, and it's impossible not to love all the antics that he gets up to.
And he's the type of character who pretty much steals the show every time he's on screen. Some of his best moments are when he's working off his big sister Unikitty, whether they're doing their sibling rivalry thing, or doing stuff together, or just being together on screen in general.
Oh no! My favorite coop! It fell out of my favorite feet! This is a disaster!
Dr. Voice, by Kat Mikusi, I'm not sure if I said that rightly, is a red fox who is the castle's resident scientist who experiments and inventions and can both create and resolve problems. Dr. Fox is voiced by the current voice actor who voices Velma in Scooby-Doo at the moment. And she's one of those crazy scientists who thinks she has an answer for everything, but she ends up causing more problems than she plans to resolve at times. She also works with a group of small robots that she created for the castle's laboratory, and her inventions are normally the things that get the characters into the pickles they have to get themselves out of. She could get quite intense when it comes to solving a problem with science, like say magic and how it works. But deep down she's a good-hearted scientist who just wants to make inventions for the greater good. Hawkadile, voiced by Roger Craig Smith, is Unikitty's trusty hawk-crocodile hybrid bodyguard who has a macho personality and has a crush on Dr. Fox. Yep, you heard me right, guys. Roger Craig Smith, the current voice of Sonic the Hedgehog, is the voice of Hawkadile. He's the sort of bodyguard that likes to go around punching and kicking stuff and people as he feels is the best solution to problems. And as I said, he has a huge crush on Dr. Fox and tries to hide it. But even though it's obvious to the audience, it's not so obvious to everyone around him, including Dr. Fox. And I really enjoy this relationship between Hawk and Dr. Fox, and I really want to see where it goes further in the show as it goes on. And there's Richard, also voiced by Roger Craig Smith, a grey 1x3 Lego brick who is Unikitty's royal advisor and the castle's property caretaker. He speaks with a dull monotone voice and is often the voice of reason, though the others find him boring to listen to. Out of all the characters in this show, Richard seems to be the only one with any common sense in the show, as he normally speaks his mind and brings logic into situations. But as I said, nobody really listens to him because his voice is really dull and boring. And just listening to this guy's voice, it's really hard to believe that Sonic the Hedgehog voices him, because you wouldn't expect this kind of voice to come out of this actor's mouth.
Having Sonic the Hedgehog's current voice actor voice Hawkadile and Richard is quite amazing to me. In fact, when I first heard it, I could hardly believe that it was Sonic the Hedgehog himself voicing these two characters.
And the main villain of the show is Master Frown, voiced by Eric Bioze, Unikitty's archenemy who comes from Frowntown on the other side of Unikitty's kingdom. He is one of the Doom Lords that spreads pain and misery throughout the world as he wants to impress the other Doom Lords. This often causes him to suffer the wrath of Unikitty, who wants to spread fun and joy.
Much like Dr. Robotnik from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Master Frown comes across to me as more of an annoyance than a dominant threat to the characters, especially when it comes to his wacky, quite annoying schemes at times.
Master Frown isn't exactly the kind of villain that you could take seriously, as he's more of a fun comedic villain that you're used to seeing in old cartoon shows. And the last main character is Brock, voiced by H. Michael Kroner, an anthropomorphic headstone with a neutral personality who is Master Frown's best friend, sidekick and roommate. Brock would often hang around his apartment playing video games rather than help Master Frown with his plot. The only time he gets angry is when Master Frown neglects his part of the chores. And it's quite hard to believe that this guy was actually born in Frowntown because of his personality and the fact that he actually likes Unikitty and her friends. He's almost like the Constantine of the show. A guy who works for the main villain but is more of a nice guy than a bad sidekick. And there's so many other characters in the show that it's really going to be hard to list them all. But there's many characters there, including Phoebe, Dino Guy, Tiger Lope, the list goes on. And most of their character designs are quite unimaginative compared to the other characters, as they just look really blocky and whatnot.
But I suppose you could say that the unimaginative designs of the characters and their blocky looks is a reference to the Lego bricks they were made out of in some of the sets they came out in.
And that's quite funny to say, since in the summer of 2018 some Lego sets were made based on the show, including buildable sets and minifigure sets which included Unikitty and Puppycorn. And whether there'll be another wave of Unikitty Lego sets or not, we'll just have to wait and see.
Another great thing about Unikitty is the parodies they do in some of the episodes they've done, like the Batman episode for instance.
As well as featuring memorable characters that you love to love, the show also has a lot of great parodies in it, including movies, TV shows, video games and all that stuff. One of the best ones being the Batman episode where Unikitty finds Batman's batsuit and goes on a crime-stopping spree as Batman. And the most hilarious part of this is that they actually got Will Arnett himself, the original voice of Lego Batman, to voice Unikitty when she wears the suit. showing that there's some continuity in the Lego Movie franchise with the Unikitty show.
In fact, I loved that Bat Kitty episode so much that I'm waiting for them to do another minifigure series of Unikitty just to have Bat Kitty in the set. That would be awesome.
And speaking of Lego Movie continuity, every opening scene in the show has stop motion characters of Lego doing stuff and then stopping what they're doing to watch the show. This is just a fun creative thing that brings Unikitty into the Lego Movie franchise. And it's especially proven when Mrs. Scratchen Post and a few of her cats stop in the streets to watch the show from a TV shop. Another one of my favourite parodies is when they do the Buddy Cop episode, Kitty and Hawk, because it plays on the things you'd expect to see in a Buddy Cop movie, like cool stunt driving, catchy one-liners, the good cop bad cop routine, and all that stuff.
You're my best friend.
No.
You're the rock and roll.
It's my line.
Time for a hug.
What? No.
You have the right to remain.
Ah, none of this is working.
And one hilarious one is when they do a reference to Friday the 13th in the Scary Stories episode, because I never expected to see a version of Jason Voorhees get scared and run away from Crocodile. That's hilarious. Another factor that makes this show one of the best things around is the animation style. Much like Teen Titans Go, this show takes a lot of reference and inspiration from animes, with wacky facial expressions from the characters, mostly Unikitty. And that really makes sense since Unikitty from the Lego Movie is based on an anime, with her facial expressions and the way she speaks and whatnot. So it really makes sense to have anime-inspired animations here. One of the funniest things being extreme close-ups of the characters' faces.
You can wish for anything you want. Anything.
And they even got famous Japanese band Baby Metal to do the theme tune for the show. That just adds some nice Japanese culture to the show. Another great aspect of the show is the musical numbers in certain episodes. Every now and then the characters would sing how they feel about a certain thing, and most of them come from Unikitty herself. And this just shows that Tara Strong has a beautiful voice, and they never should have replaced her voice in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic for the musical numbers. I mean, come on, why the hell wouldn't you let Tara Strong sing the songs? But I digress. The show's been going on since 2017 and is still going today into its second season with 69 episodes so far. And the best place to check them out is Cartoon Network, where you can see all 69 episodes on Cartoon Network so far.
So for me, what makes Unikitty such a great show is the voice acting, the writing, the comedy, the references, and just the cuteness of Unikitty herself.
All those factors that I mentioned is what, in my opinion, makes Unikitty one of the best animated shows of today. With great animation, great comedy, great parodies, great musical numbers, and a great cast of characters and voice actors, and great inspirations from animes and other movies and TV shows, Unikitty is without a doubt one of the best shows Cartoon Network's created since Regular Show and The Amazing World of Gumball. And if you haven't seen the show yet, I'd highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're a fan of the Lego Movie and just a fan of animation. I guarantee that you'll get a lot of pleasure out of this show, and it's a great way to cheer you up if you've had a bad day. Unikitty's cute moments and antics will just be guaranteed to cheer you up if you've been having a tough day at work. And for all those reasons and more, Unikitty is one of the best cartoon shows that I've seen in a long time. And I hope to see more episodes and Lego sets based on the show in the future.
I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. Let's talk about famous American actress Russi Taylor. Russi Taylor, born the 4th of May 1944, was an American voice actress who voiced many characters throughout her career. Russi has voiced many characters over the years. but because I don't exactly remember all of them, I'll just talk about some of the ones that I do remember.
Russi had voiced many characters in her lifetime, including Smoogle from the Smurfs, Huey, Dewey, Louie and Webby from DuckTales, the original cartoon, Martin Prince, Terry Sherry and various other characters in The Simpsons, Phantasmo from Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, Baby Gonzo in the original Muppet Babies, Hard Luck Duck from the What a Cartoon segments, Baby Pebbles Flintstone in various TV movies including Holly Rockabye Baby and The Flintstones Christmas Carol, various characters in many Disney projects, and she even got to voice young Donald Duck in the DuckTales reboot, reusing her Huey, Dewey and Louie voices. Which really does make sense, because she does sound like a young Donald Duck when you think about it.
And one particular job role was where she would find her one true love. And that role would be Minnie Mouse.
Russi got the job as Minnie Mouse in 1988, when her first and short role as the character was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and she would go on to voice the character in many other projects including Disney's House of Mouse, Mickey Mouse Works, Mickey Mouse Runaway Brain, Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas and its sequel Twice Upon a Christmas, Mickey's Magical Christmas Snowed In at the House of Mouse, Mickey's House of Villains, Mickey, Donald and Goofy and the Three Musketeers, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Minnie's Bow Tunes, Mickey and the Roadster Racers, and the new Mickey Mouse cartoon from 2013 onwards. It was during her time voicing Minnie Mouse where she met Wayne Allwine, the voice of Mickey Mouse in the 80s throughout to the early 2000s. After working together in so many cartoons, the two ended up falling in love and got married in 1991. So you could say that Mickey and Minnie Mouse brought the two actors together.
Years later, I still find it really sweet to think that Mickey and Minnie Mouse was what brought these two actors together. It's very sweet when you think about it.
And the pair have been voicing the characters for many years onwards. But sadly, in the 18th of May 2009, Wayne Allwine passed away, leaving Russi Taylor widowed. But despite the loss of her husband, Russi continued to voice Minnie Mouse throughout the years.
For an actress like Russi Taylor to voice a character for years and to continue voicing her after her husband passed away is just true dedication to the character.
It's just so amazing that an actress who had lost her husband that she'd lived with and worked with for so many years would still carry on to voice a character that she's voiced alongside her husband. That is true dedication to a character. The two of them were even named Disney Legends in 2008, and she carried on voicing Minnie Mouse as well as many other cartoon characters throughout the years.
She has also been proven to have a wonderful singing voice as Minnie Mouse, as was shown in many Mickey Mouse cartoons over the years.
But sadly, in July the 26th, 2019, she passed away at the age of 75, and her final role as Minnie Mouse would be the Mickey Mouse cartoon Carried Away, where she sings a song for Mickey Mouse while Mickey tries to save them from the ongoing dangers of the river. Like most people in the 90s, I grew up with her voicing Minnie Mouse, and I've adored her voice as the character ever since I first heard her in the 90s. And it just really saddened me to hear that a great icon of my childhood had passed away after so many years. And it's really heartbreaking because she'd been voicing Minnie Mouse for 30 years, and that must be the longest run of actors to voice the character since her first appearance in the 1920s. After her death, Disney's chairman and CEO Bob Iger paid tribute to Russi, saying, "Minnie Mouse lost her voice with the passing of Russi Taylor. For more than 30 years, Minnie and Russi worked together to entertain millions around the world, a partnership that made Minnie a global icon and Russi a Disney legend." Bill Farmer, the current voice of Goofy, also paid tribute by saying, "Russi was as close as family, as wonderful, funny and sweet as Minnie Mouse, and as talented yet humble as you would expect. I will deeply and dearly miss her." Russi Taylor, the voice of Minnie Mouse, had been a huge part of my childhood since the 90s, and a huge part of many people's childhood for that matter, and while Russi Taylor is no longer with us, it's nice to think that she's in a better place now, and will hopefully be reunited with her longtime partner and husband, Wayne Allwine.
While many of Russi Taylor's characters may fade away as the years go by, Minnie Mouse is the one that everybody will remember in their hearts.
And she will be dearly missed by me and many of the people that she had entertained throughout the years.
And I would just like to give a huge thank you to Russi Taylor for voicing Minnie Mouse for so many years and being a part of my childhood. And may you rest in peace with Wayne Allwine up there. guys, I'm Dalek44. I have no introduction, but I got one anyway. In case you're wondering why I'm dancing, me and my friends here are celebrating me getting over 2,000 subscribers. Thanks for 2,000 subscribers, guys. It just took me a while to thank you lot and do this party because I don't check my channel updates very often. I'm a very lazy man. Another thing that has me in a party mood is the LEGO Movie 2, the second part. In 2014, the LEGO Movie was released in cinemas, a film that was so good that it surprised people and got them upset when it wasn't nominated for Best Animated Film. Then in 2017, the LEGO Batman movie, the first spin-off to the film, came out, and was another hit in the box office. Then in the same year, the LEGO Ninjago movie came out, and it wasn't exactly the major hit that the LEGO movie and the LEGO Batman movie was, but it still brought in the money. Then in February 2019, the LEGO Movie 2, the second part, was released in cinemas, the sequel to the first LEGO movie. And with the LEGO Movie franchise being as big a franchise as possibly the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how does the sequel hold up? Let's find out, folks. 5 years have passed since the events of Taco Tuesday after the Duplo invasion. Yeah, that's kind of a spoiler from the first movie. And the now teenaged Finn has rebuilt Bricksburg into the post-apocalyptic wasteland known as Apocalypseburg, which is explained in the LEGO universe as a result of the repeated Duplo invasions. While this new life has hardened most of the citizens, Emmett remains upbeat, building a dream home for himself and Lucy, aka Wildstar, who fears the home will invite another attack, and tells Emmett that he needs to adapt to their harsh new world. Not long after this, a mini-doll named General Sweet Mayhem arrives looking for Apocalypseburg's leader, and captures Batman, Lucy, Benny, Metalbeard, and Unikitty, and flown to the Sistar system. There, Queen Whatever Wanabe tempts the group into supporting her. Although Batman is initially tricked into agreeing to marry Wanabe, the two eventually fall in love. Meanwhile, Emmett tries to convince the Master Builders that they need to rescue the captured characters, but they refuse to help him. He converts his house into a spaceship and travels through the stairgate, out of the basement, where he is saved from an asteroid field by a rugged adventurer named Rex Dangervest. Emmett begins to toughen up by mimicking Rex, hoping to impress Lucy. Lucy and her friends are taken to a spa, but believing that the others are being brainwashed by music, Lucy escapes to find Emmett. Meanwhile, Rex and Emmett arrive in the Sistar system, encountering and evading its inhabitants before finding Lucy. Concluding that the wedding is a front for Armageddon, a catastrophic event Emmett dreamed about, Emmett devises a plan to save their friends and destroy the temple. But after battling Sweet Mayhem, Lucy discovers that the Sistar system is as evil as they think, and that Rex might be the real bad guy here. And she has to save Emmett from Rex before it's too late. So is the LEGO Movie 2 as good as the first LEGO Movie as well as the spin-offs? Yes. Yes, it is. When the LEGO Movie 2 was first announced, everyone didn't know what to expect from it. Was it going to be as good as the first movie, or would it not be able to hold up a candle to the first movie? But in my opinion, it's just as good as the first movie because of its keeping up the tradition of the LEGO Movie franchise, as well as the references to the previous movie, as well as the LEGO Batman movie. The movie does a great job of taking everything that made the original LEGO movie so good and expanding upon the universe. Along with the characters we all know and love, we also get a host of new characters. With the original cast, there's Emmett Bukowski, played by Chris Pratt, an everyman construction worker and experienced master builder from Bricksburg. He's pretty much the same old Emmett that we knew him from the first movie. Happy-go-lucky everyman who tries to fit in, but doesn't seem to fit in very well with his environment. But as the movie goes on, when he meets Rex Dangervest, he eventually learns to toughen up his heart and be a bit more serious with things. You could say that Emmett represents what's left of Finn's childhood memories, being the naive, innocent character that he was in the original film. There's Lucy, aka Wildstar, played by Elizabeth Banks, a fellow master builder and Emmett's unofficial girlfriend. Lucy's still the same old Lucy/Wildstar from the first film, but in this movie we'd learn a bit more of her sensitive side.
like what she was like before she became the wild star we knew her as in the movies. I won't give away too much for like the two of you who haven't seen this movie, but the reveals about Lucy, aka Wildstar, is just so unexpected for me the first time I watched it. It's just some good character development for her. There's Batman, voiced by Will Arnett, a DC Comics superhero who is also a master builder. He's just as hilarious as he was in the first film and the Lego Batman movie. While Batman is still the egotistical Batman we love this version of the character for, the movie has him diving into something that he's never had to deal with in any of his previous incarnations. Marriage. That's both ridiculous and super hilarious at the same time.
Batman is a permanent bad trouble. Can you imagine if having a family with someone I love healed some of my darkest trauma? Or
the other original characters include Benny, the 1980-something space guy voiced by Charlie Day, Metalbeard, a masterbeard who is a large bionic pirate, voiced by Nick Overman, Alfred Pennyworth, Batman's butler played by Ray Fiennes, returns, and we also get moments with Harley Quinn and the Justice League. Even President Business, voiced by Will Arnett, returns in the movie, but only for brief cameo scenes where he tries to stop the invasion of the Duplos and then just goes away to play golf while doing nothing to help.
A phony! A big fat phony!
And of course we get my favourite character, Unikitty, voiced by Alan Bray. In the sequel, instead of turning red when angry, she is red altogether. Over the years since the first film, she has developed the ability to become a giant version of herself called Ultra Catty when a battle is about to occur. As many of you know, Unikitty is one of my favourite LEGO movie characters, and her getting a bigger part in another movie was something that I've wanted to see ever since the first movie. And the sequel does just that. In fact, there's a couple of moments in the movie where she's trying to get back in the movie from time to time, which is something I've nicknamed Unikitty trying to get more appearances in the movie scenes. Similar to Looney Tunes Back in Action, where every scene has live action actors and the characters from the Looney Tunes tend to try and get back into the camera as much as possible, Unikitty sort of does that throughout this movie. Like in the intermission scene.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
That still cracks me up. Even when the movie's ending, she pokes her head in as an anime character would just so she could get one final moment in the movie. It's almost as if she's aware that this is a movie and she's trying to get back on camera every moment she can. This is just one of the reasons I love the character so much. And among the new characters, we have Rex Dangervest, also voiced by Chris Pratt, a self-declared galaxy-defending archaeologist, cowboy and raptor trainer. The character is basically a spoof of the action roles played by Pratt, including Star-Lord from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Owen Grady from Jurassic World, and Joshua Faraday from the 2016 remake of The Magnificent Seven. There's also a reference to rumours of Pratt playing Indiana Jones. Sure, at first Rex Dangervest seems like a parody of the various tough guy acts that Chris Pratt has played over the years, but similar to how Emmett represents Finn's childhood memories, Rex seems to represent the adultness in Finn, the tough, gritty action hero type of Finn that you see a lot. And beware, because there's a major spoiler for like the two of you who haven't seen this movie. By the end of the film, he is revealed to be Emmett's future self, having assembled a time machine from Lego sets based on Back to the Future, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, H.G. Wells' Time Machine, Doctor Who, The Terminator, and Hot Tub Time Machine. This was a movie twist that I never saw coming the first time I watched the movie. And in a way it does sort of make sense since both characters are voiced by Chris Pratt, but they just did a great job at keeping it a secret until the end that you never saw it coming. And that kind of thing just makes a great twist in the movie, as well as adding in a time travel subplot. Looking back at this film, I kind of see Rex as the Flash heart of the movie. You know, someone who's full of himself, loves himself, and is sure to let everybody else know how great he is. You know, if Flash heart was child-friendly, that is.
Well, that's how I like my girls. Direct and to my point. Wow. Tally ho then, back to the bar.
There's General Sweet Mayhem, voiced by Stephanie Beatrice, an intergalactic mini-doll who is general and law enforcer of the Sistar system army and works under the orders of Queen Whatever Wanabe. The first time I saw a glimpse of this character was in a poster for the LEGO Movie 2 where we see her helmet and the main characters reflecting off her shield. And before we knew what she looked like under the mask, Sweet Mayhem just looked quite awesome. Ever since the first teaser poster of this movie came out, I've always seen Sweet Mayhem as the sort of Boba Fett of the movie.
Someone who wears an awesome armour and mask that hides her face, but looks really awesome despite looking like a doll minifigure.
And it was also very interesting introducing her as a mini doll figure, making her different from all the other characters, as well as fitting into her own environment in the Sistar system. And the final new character is Queen Whatever Wanabe, voiced by Tiffany Haddish, a shape-shifting alien queen from the Sistar system.
Animation-wise, Whatever Wanabe is the most interesting looking character. And I think the animators must have been having a hell of a lot of fun coming up with these various designs for the character, while sticking to the limitations of the bricks used.
I mean, it's just so clever how they managed to use various Lego bricks to create her different forms while staying true to their limitations. It's just really clever how they managed to pull it off with this character.
I'm Queen Whatever Wanabe. I could change my form to something else that just makes you uncomfortable. Hey guys.
No, go back. The horse was much more palatable.
Like the previous films, the animation was done in a way which makes it look like a stop-motion movie, with the limitations of the Lego minifigures and the mini-doll figures. I mean, literally, when you see the mini-dolls like Sweet Mayhem moving, they just hop around on the screen since they can't move their legs. That's just a great way to keep in true with their limitations.
Like the previous movies, most of the effects you see are made out of Lego bricks, and they all stick to the limitations of the bricks and pieces of minifig, while exaggerating some moves, but still sticking to their limitations.
And quite like in the previous movies, where most elements were made out of Lego and some elements were made out of real-life elements, like the relics from the first movie, water and smoke from the Lego Batman movie, and pretty much 50% of everything in the Lego Ninjago movie. But here the only things that are made out of real-life objects is really the stuff that comes from the Sistar system, like the stickers from Sweet Mayhem's sticker gun, as well as some sparkly things like water that comes from the Sistar system, which really keeps in true with Finn's little sister Bianca, especially when you see her bedroom near the end of the film. A lot of the sparkly waters and things just represents things in her bedroom like curtains and whatnot. And once again they managed to pull off the animation to make it look like it's a stop-motion movie. And I love how the film was written that it took place 5 years after the events of the first film, keeping in with the ages of Finn and Bianca. Since Finn was a kid back in the first film and now he's a little bit of an older kid in this film. When the movie was first announced, it was said that it was going to be a space travel movie. Then it was later revealed to be a space travel musical film, which took everyone by surprise since the first film wasn't a musical at all. But this film managed to pull it off really well with their musical numbers.
Of course, this isn't exactly a huge musical movie like most Disney films and Broadway musicals you see, but they do take advantage of every song they do make in the movie and have a lot of fun with them.
So we get some really good showstoppers like the Tween Dream remix of Everything Is Awesome. The very short but to the point 5:15. The Welcome to the Sistar System chant. Not Evil with Queen Whatever Wanabe singing about how not evil she is. But the way they play it off just makes it seem misleading, thinking that she's lying about everything. Catchy song, which is a new earworm, which tops Everything Is Awesome in my opinion.
Like Everything Is Awesome for the original movie, Catchy Song is one of those catchy as hell songs that you won't be forgetting anytime soon. I mean seriously, the first time I heard it, I couldn't stop myself singing along to it every time I heard it. It's that catchy.
Gotham City Guys, which shows Whatever Wanabe trying to play at Batman's ego, as well as fitting in a few Batman references here and there.
I honestly never expected to see so many Batman references come from this 2-minute song. Mostly with live action actors that's played him, from Adam West to Ben Affleck. But it's still some great references and sort of carries on the continuity from the Lego Batman movie, where they make references to the previous incarnations of the Caped Crusader.
Everything's Not Awesome, a sequel to Everything Is Awesome, played out as a sad song and then turns into a happy song at the end.
Everything's not awesome.
Everything's not cool.
I am so depressed.
And Super Cool, which plays at the end of the credits, which pretty much demolishes the fourth wall. Literally. Yeah, I'm not joking, just listen to the song and you'll hear them demolishing the fourth wall. And speaking of breaking the fourth wall, I find it absolutely hilarious in the moments when Wildstar, aka Lucy, and Batman guess whenever a musical moment's going to appear.
Oh no, are we in a musical? I hate musicals.
Oh great, more singing right on time.
It's like they've read the script for the movie or something, and that when the music starts, they know that someone's going to start singing about something. That's just great writing on the team's behalf. Like the previous film, this movie has so many references and appearances from other LEGO characters, such as Harley Quinn, Abraham Lincoln coming back from the previous film, Velma from Scooby-Doo, and we even get cameos from the Wizard of Oz characters. That's something that you wouldn't have expected in this movie unless you bought the LEGO Movie 2 minifigure series, because the first time we saw these characters in LEGO form was in LEGO Dimensions. And then we got to see the Wicked Witch of the West and the Flying Monkeys in the LEGO Batman movie as part of Joker's army, so it would make sense that they would bring in the main characters for the sequel. That's just some great continuity to the previous films. And speaking of continuity, they actually do a great job of tying in the LEGO Batman movie with this universe, by having scenes where the characters would often point out that the LEGO Batman movie was Batman's standalone adventure. And it also explains why the Justice League didn't show up in the final battle of the LEGO Batman movie. It was because they went off to the Sistar system to try and stop the aliens from invading again. It's just some great moments like that that ties up the loose ends from the LEGO Batman movie. They even put in some really good nods to the Unikitty TV series on Cartoon Network, by having Unikitty slide into a sparkle pool from her castle with puppycorn watching. And there's even a little bit in the real world where Bianca's room has a Unikitty plush toy from the TV series, showing that the TV series does exist in this universe. And some fans have theorised that the TV series probably takes place after the events of the second movie. Now, nothing's been confirmed for this theory, but it is a very interesting theory, especially when you consider that LEGO Batman actually appeared in one of the Unikitty episodes as LEGO Batman, in stop motion. There are even these random moments from Bruce Willis playing a LEGO version of himself. That's the kind of thing that you wouldn't expect in a kids film to have a reference to Die Hard. We also have Richard Ayoade, I'm not sure if I said that correctly, as a talking ice cream cone who is a citizen of the Sistar system and Queen Whatever Wanabe's right-hand character. Now, for those of you who recognise his voice somehow, it's because he played Moss in the IT Crowd TV series, and he just has one of the most recognisable voices in the world that you just know that it's him. And he plays off this seemingly not so cheerful ice cream cone really well. And it's quite funny considering that in the Unikitty Sweet Friends set you see the ice cream cone with a smiling face, when throughout the movie he mostly frowns and has a miserable looking face. That's really funny when you buy the set. The LEGO Movie 2 is definitely a great follow-up to the first LEGO Movie in my book. It's got great animation, great acting, great humour, great songs, and it's just an all-around great movie as well as a great sequel. It ties up the loose ends for the LEGO Batman movie and fills in the cliffhanger from the first LEGO Movie, as well as filling in some of its awesome moments on its own. The LEGO Movie 2 is a great addition to the LEGO Movie franchise, as well as a great sequel to the first movie. And if you haven't seen this movie yet, I'd highly recommend checking it out for yourself. You'll have a great time with the LEGO animation, LEGO comedy, and the great characters that are involved. So definitely go check it out if you haven't seen it already. It's worth it. I'm Dalek44, and thanks for over 2,000 subscribers, folks. Now let's get back to that party. This song is stuck in my head, folks, and my head loves it.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. And welcome to another installment of The Villain Files. We've had various types of villains here on The Villain Files. Criminals, evil geniuses, ghosts, and even aliens bent on destruction. But this particular villain is someone who intends to conquer the entire galaxy and rid the universe of its greatest enemies. This is Lord Zedd.
Lord Zedd was a major villain from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series and a recurring through Power Rangers Zeo and Power Rangers in Space. He was the very first American-made villain for the Power Rangers series of shows with no origin from the Japanese Sentai shows. Thousands of years ago, Zedd presumably managed to forge his own empire, as he proclaimed to be Emperor of Evil. He enslaved multiple other evil beings, such as Goldar and Rita Repulsa. Because he did not think Earth was important enough to warrant his attention, he had left Rita Repulsa to conquer it while he pursued the conquest of other systems. In the show's second season premiere, he arrived on Earth to punish Rita, disgusted with her failure to take over Earth and defeat the Power Rangers. Stripping Rita of her powers, he shrunk her and imprisoned her within a space dumpster, hurling her into the depths of space. He then mutated a piranha from the lake into the monstrous Piranha's head, who assumed command of the Tyrannosaurus sword and the Dragon sword. The Rangers barely survived the attack, but managed to regain control of their swords. Furious, Lord Zedd attempted to destroy the 5 dinosaurs, only for the Rangers to turn the tables and transform the remains into the more powerful Thunderzords. Despite being beaten by the Power Rangers in his first attack, Lord Zedd swore that he would never rest until the Rangers were completely destroyed and the Earth was reduced to cinders. Despite the Rangers' acquisition of the Thunderzords, Lord Zedd attacked again and again, each assault deadlier than the last. His monsters were created from objects on Earth with the power of his scepter, and he made them grow using grenades. Zedd would throw the grenade down to the monster, who would then catch it, pull out the pin and throw it on the ground to make itself grow. Ever since his first failure, Lord Zedd has been targeting Tommy most of all, because his Green Ranger powers were created by Rita Repulsa, and he was determined to wipe out all memory of her failures. After Tommy's Green Ranger powers were extinguished completely, Lord Zedd turned his attention to Kimberly the Pink Ranger, who had desired her to be his queen based on her good looks and tenacity, and sent Goldar to capture, brainwash and train her into being so. But his plan failed when it was discovered that the magic dust that was used to entrance her didn't work, and that she was really doing a Rita impression to fool Goldar and buy the Rangers enough time to rescue her. Zedd has hated Kimberly ever since. Over time, Lord Zedd discovered that the Rangers were no pushovers, and each of his monsters failed to defeat them. With the Thunderzords and new White Tiger Sword on their side after Tommy returned as the White Ranger, the Power Rangers seemed indestructible. He soon unearthed the gigantic war machine known as Serpentera that was so large that it could crush the Rangers' swords with ease. However, its flaw was that it used up its energy so fast that it could only be used for short periods of time. Soon it was time for Zedd to fully restore his evil energies with his Sentinel recharge. It was during this slumber that Rita Repulsa returned to the palace, plotting revenge. She poured a love potion created by Finster into the recharging machine, and when Zedd awoke, he instantly fell in love with Rita, proposing. However, the love potion did not work as Rita hoped. She planned on manipulating him, but Zedd was strong enough to resist, but not completely. He became less serious on defeating the Rangers and more focused on his life with Rita. Despite turning into a goofy conqueror after marrying Rita Repulsa, the two of them proved to be a greater threat to the Power Rangers together than either one of them did alone. With Zedd and Rita working side by side, the Rangers' battles became more difficult than ever. Zedd and Rita's schemes together, including creating a clone of the evil Tommy and sending the Rangers back to the past. When his wife's brother Rita Revolto arrived on the moon, even with Tenga warriors and a Vampirus as gifts, Lord Zedd was disgusted by the skeleton's stupidity and would bellow with rage every time Rito called him Ed. But with Rito's help, Zedd and Rita were able to destroy the Thunderzords and the Rangers' powers, persuading them to go in search of the Great Ninja and receive the new ninja powers as well as the ninja swords. Rita's love potion was eventually removed from Zedd thanks to Goldar, but to everyone's surprise, Zedd truly loved Rita on his own. During the Pink Ranger fiasco, when Zedd had held her hostage to force the Rangers to use the Shogun swords in his service, Lord Zedd battled Tommy personally to keep him from saving Kimberly from an alternate dimension. This marked the only time that Zedd had battled a Ranger personally, proving himself quite capable of holding his own. Though Zedd easily gained the upper hand against the White Ranger, Tommy used Saba, his sword, to shatter Zedd's C-staff, forcing him to retreat. When Master Vile arrived on the moon, Lord Zedd was pushed to the side as Vile took over in search of the Zeo Crystal. He expressed disdain to his father-in-law, who constantly put him down. Once Vile left after his army was defeated by the Aqua Rangers, Zedd was ecstatic, and he resumed his attacks on Earth. The Rangers had been turned into children due to Vile's Orb of Doom, and all that stood in Zedd's way were the Aqua Rangers. During this time, Zedd and Rita managed to destroy the Earth Rangers' power coins, but only after Billy returned to his proper age. Zedd also found a map of the Rangers' command center, pointing out a weak point. He sent Goldar and Rita in to plant a bomb and steal the Zeo Crystal before the Orb of Doom's magic was undone. Though unable to stop the Rangers in undoing the damage Master Vile did, Zedd was able to destroy the command center, and despite Lord Zedd's victory over the Rangers this time around, there was no time to celebrate, as a bigger and greater threat arose. Just as Rita and Zedd started to celebrate their victory over the Power Rangers and destroying their command center, the Machine Empire led by Kim Mondo and Queen Machina arrived and attacked. Zedd and Rita were forced to retreat, taking Serpentera to the M51 galaxy. They soon returned, however, in a motorhome, plotting to overthrow Mondo and destroy the Empire. The two forces clashed on several occasions, neither gaining much ground. At one point, Prince Gasket, Mondo's son, had Tommy brainwashed and closed in a dimension portal to his arena to prevent the Rangers from saving him. But Zedd and Finster helped the Rangers get to the arena to prevent the machine victory. After a series of failed attempts, they finally managed to destroy the Royal House of Gadgetry with a bomb shaped like a gift. And us fans couldn't wait to see what Lord Zedd and Rita Repulsor had in store for the Zeo Rangers. But sadly, we never got it. Despite Zedd and Rita being mysteriously absent during the Power Rangers Turbo season, fans have speculated that a gap between Zeo and Turbo movie reveals that Zedd and Rita had tried to regain control of the Earth with Serpentera, but have failed to take over the Earth, forcing them to retreat for good. Lord Zedd, along with Rita, makes a cameo appearance in Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, when the new villain Divatox calls Rita for advice on how to deal with the Power Rangers. She is subjected to Zedd's snoring and Rita instructing her to flee rather than fight. After many successive failures, this was the best advice the villainess could get. A year later, Zedd and Rita attended the Dark Spectre's conference. Zedd toasted to the Dark Spectre's capture of Zordon and take over the universe, and unsuccessfully tried to attack Andros, the Space Red Ranger, when he was caught spying. Months later, they invaded the Vika Galaxy and quickly conquered it, defeating and capturing the Gold Ranger in the process. When Zordon's energy wave washed over them and their army, Zedd was inspired, transformed into a human being. His love for Rita seemed to remain, and the two danced together in the remnants of their army, much to the confusion of the Gold Ranger. In Power Rangers Operation Overdrive, Rita and Zedd's son, Pratt, shows up and attempts to restore their legacy by destroying the Power Rangers, but ultimately fails. Despite being purified into a good human by Zordon, Lord Zedd will make many appearances in other forms of media, including the big screen movie, some video games, comics, and even toy lines. In the 1995 Power Rangers movie for the big screen, Lord Zedd is a villain that has time and time again fought against the Power Rangers. With Rita Repulsor by his side and his lackeys Goldar and Mordant in tow, they slipped into Earth when he realized that a hyperlock chamber he had been searching for 2,000 years had surfaced in Angel Grove. He frees the prisoner, revealing him to be the legendary villain Ivan Ooze. He then unleashes him on the Rangers, hoping he'll finally destroy them. He seemed to show a great amount of respect for Ivan at first. However, when Ooze returns and turns out he hadn't destroyed the Rangers, Zedd begins to berate Ooze, which does not sit too well with the evil tyrant. Zedd and Rita are overpowered by Ooze, and he miniaturizes them, trapping them in a snow globe, leaving Ooze with his moon base and lackeys to do as he pleases. However, when things begin to turn around for the Rangers, Zedd and Rita cheer on the Rangers, knowing full well that destruction is to come to Ivan Ooze for crossing the Rangers. After Ooze's destruction, he and Rita return to normal in the Lunar Palace, glaring angrily at the worried Goldar Mordant. Lord Zedd appears as the main villain in the video game Power Rangers Super Legends. Years after the events of Countdown to Destruction, Zedd's human form became an archaeologist on Earth and found the Time Crystal. Not able to resist the temptation to look back on what he once was, Zedd's past self detected this and reached out to corrupt the artifact and recreate himself. After his powers were restored, Zedd decided to enjoy making use of the time crystals to create chaos in the timeline, not caring of the consequences of his actions he may have already had on reality. He visited various points of the future and past, forming alliances with generals and leaders of villain factions and giving them minions from other timelines. At the end of the game, it takes the combined effort of the various Rangers from the past, present and future to defeat him. Zedd attempts to escape, but accidentally drops the time crystal when fleeing to the void outside of time. The Omega Ranger admits to his fellow Rangers that it may take Zedd eons to escape, bringing a peace into the universe on at least one front. Lord Zedd is among the many villains who featured in the Power Rangers Legacy Wars iPhone game. Lord Zedd had even appeared as the main villain in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Live, where he attempted to destroy the Rangers once again, but ultimately failed. Lord Zedd had even appeared in the 5th, 23rd, 24th and 25th episodes of Power Rangers Hyperforce. In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Lord Zedd was voiced by the late Robert Axelrod, who gave a great voice to the character, an evil, gravelly voice with a lot of emotion in it, compared to a lot of the other monsters within Power Rangers over the years. Axelrod also returned to voice him in the 1995 movie, where he made Zedd sound a little more demonic and had a deeper voice. When Zedd appeared in Power Rangers Super Legends, he was voiced by Stephen Bloom, with Tony Oliver voicing him in the Power Rangers Super Megaforce video game, and Malika Lim portraying him in Power Rangers Hyperforce. Lord Zedd starts off in the show as very menacing, sadistic and full of himself. He coldly abuses his lackeys, dangerously silencing Goldar and the others frequently and blaming them for most of his failures rather than taking responsibility for the failures himself. During and after the wedding, however, thanks to Rita's love potion, his personality changes to a mostly loving and caring person around Rita, but he still abuses her and others when he doesn't get his way. And Zedd's appearance just spills out pure evil in my opinion. It's just one of the greatest villain designs of all time. And I don't just mean Power Rangers villains, but I mean villains in general, with a metal mask that hides his true face, with a permanent wicked grin on it, a hole at the top exposing his brain, exposed muscles, and metal exoskeleton around him, and tubes carrying liquid all over his body. That's just pure evil to me. And every time Lord Zedd loses his temper with his minions, or the Rangers, or at any one of his defeats, he glows bright red. Lord Zedd has super strength. Despite fighting rarely, he can still hold his own against the Rangers, as was proven when he fought Tommy the White Ranger and nearly wiped the floor with him. He is able to conjure objects out of thin air, such as his staff from a snake, or growth bombs. Zedd's vision is so accurate, he can see what's happening on Earth just by looking at the planet. He also seems to see what happens in an entirely different solar system, as seen when the Rangers travel to other planets. In his first appearance, he caused a thunderstorm on the moon, which is very different from how sunny it was in the very first episode of the show. He also created a giant projection of himself in the clouds in said storm. And if it wasn't obvious, Zedd can generate lightning over himself to teleport to any location he chooses. And of course his growth bombs give the abilities to have monsters grow giant. But when he married Rita, he eventually started combining his staff with hers to make the monsters grow. Over the years, Lord Zedd has been known as one of the most famous, best, and most iconic villains in Power Rangers history, including myself. Over the years, Lord Zedd has become one of the most iconic villains in Power Rangers history, and loved by many fans including myself. And despite his voice actor Robert Axelrod passing away this year, his legacy will live on in this famous Power Rangers villain. And all memories of this character will not be fading away anytime soon, despite having not appeared since Power Rangers in Space. For all these reasons, Lord Zedd will remain one of the greatest villains in Power Rangers history. And that's everything I know that you need to know about Lord Zedd. Look out for more villain files in the future. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. Well, it's the month of Halloween, and the Bristol zombie walks will be starting anytime soon. So what is it with people's fascination with zombies? Yes, for some reason zombies are a very popular thing to be associated with Halloween and horror movies. And pretty much everyone has used zombies in their own medias. Movies, TV shows. Hell, there's even been some parodies related to children's franchises such as Lego, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Adventure Time, even Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island used the genre. So it's needless to say that zombies are a huge thing in pop culture. One of the funniest examples of the zombie popularity is that hilarious movie Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is a 2004 horror comedy film directed by Edgar Wright, who co-wrote it with Simon Pegg. The film stars Pegg and Nick Frost as mates Shaun and Ed, Londoners who are caught in an apocalyptic zombie uprising and attempt to refuge in a local pub with their loved ones. And this movie was the start of the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, which consisted of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz and The World's End. So was Shaun of the Dead a great way to start the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy? Let's have a look. The movie follows a man named Shaun, played by Simon Pegg, a salesman at an electronics store with no direction in his life. His colleagues disrespect him. He does not get along with his stepfather, Philip, played by Bill Nighy, and his girlfriend Liz breaks up with him after he fails to get dinner reservations and suggests they go to the Winchester, the pub at which they spend most of their evenings. After the breakup, Shaun drowns his sorrows there with his close friend Ed, played by Nick Frost. At home, Shaun and Ed's flatmate Pete complains of a bite wound from a mugger, and they're playing electro at 4 o'clock in the morning whilst he has to fill in at work. He berates Shaun to get his life together. By morning, a zombie apocalypse has overwhelmed London, but Shaun and Ed are slow to notice until they encounter 2 zombies in their garden and kill them with blows to the head. They devise a plan to rescue Shaun's mother, Barbara, and Liz. But I think I'll let Shaun tell you what the plan is.
Take car, go to Mum's, kill Phil, sorry, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
Great plan. They escape in Pete's car and pick up Barbara and Philip, who gets bitten shortly after. They use Philip's prized Jaguar to pick up Liz and her friends, and Diane and David. Philip makes peace with Shaun before turning into a zombie. The group abandons the vehicle and continues on foot, sneaking through backyards and evading zombies by pretending to be them. And despite Shaun's prediction, the zombie apocalypse doesn't blow over as they make their way to the Winchester. So Shaun and the gang arm themselves to protect themselves and their loved ones from the dead. So what are my thoughts on Shaun of the Dead? It's hilarious. This is the first time since The Simpsons Halloween episodes where I've seen a zombie film that's hilarious as well as horrific at the same time. But whereas The Simpsons, where it's mostly played out for comedy, Shaun of the Dead isn't afraid to do any gory moments, as you'd expect in a zombie movie. Despite the movie being a bomb at the box office, only raising $30 million worldwide compared to its $6.1 million budget, It got a huge popularity in the DVD sales, which pretty much persuaded Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg to work on Hot Fuzz. Fun fact about this movie. When it first came out, I wasn't really interested to go see it because of the poster that was shown in the cinema I went to. I just assumed it was going to be a straight-up horror movie, and I'm not really much of a horror movie goer. Yeah, when this movie first came out, I wasn't at all interested in going to see it. It was because of a poster that I'd seen in the cinema for it. I just assumed it was going to be a straight-up horror movie, and I wasn't into horror movies at the time, and I still aren't. But when I did go see it, I find myself laughing at it a lot. In fact, these days I watch it a lot more than I did back in the day when it was first released on cinemas and DVD. So you could say that rewatching this movie a couple of times in the future has made me appreciate it more now than what I did when it first came out. And let's face it, if it wasn't for Shaun of the Dead, we might not have gotten the rest of the Cornetto trilogy films. But you can't have a zombie apocalypse movie without a great range of characters, and this movie has plenty of them. There's Shaun, played by Simon Pegg, the main character of the film. A down-on-his-luck sort of guy who doesn't really get anywhere in his life with a dead-end job, a failing relationship, and a hate relationship between his stepfather and him. And throughout the film, he's trying to sort his life out with Liz, while also trying to keep in touch with his good friend Ed. He wants to find a good balance between the two, but finds it impossible to do so. Shaun's kind of the lazy, everyday man that we can all relate to. Someone who has a mundane job and a mundane life and just wants something better from it. And as the movie goes on, Shaun progresses from a young lad into a fully grown man. And I know that sounds pretty weird to say, since he is a fully grown man, but you get what I mean. The movie plays as a zombie apocalypse film as well as a journey for Shaun to become a man. And Simon Pegg plays the part superbly. And there's his best friend Ed, played by Nick Frost, a lazy bum who likes to stay around the flat all day playing video games and occasionally selling weed to people. While Ed is kind of an ass in this movie, it's never to a point where he's unlikable. And that's all thanks to Nick Frost's portrayal of the character. He brings out the asshole-ish side of the character, as well as the funny side of him. I especially find it hilarious how he somehow predicts what's going to happen for the rest of the movie.
You know what we should do tomorrow? Keep drinking. Have a bloody merry first thing. I'll buy a king's head, couple of the little princess, stagger back in. Back at the bar for shots. How's that for a slice of fried gold?
A running gag which was soon shown in the other films, Hot Fuzz and The World's End.
Coincidence? I think not!
Kate Ashfield plays Liz, Shaun's girlfriend. Someone who wants to see more out of Shaun other than just going to the Winchester every night. And some people could see her as the typical stick-in-the-mud girlfriend, but because of the movie's writing, she comes out as more than just a typical stick-in-the-mud girlfriend, as they give her a lot of funny lines to say and a lot of funny things to do. There's Shaun's mother Barbara, played by Penelope Wilton, a loving mother of Shaun who sometimes can be oblivious to everything around her. Throughout the whole movie, she's completely oblivious to what's going on around her, like the zombie apocalypse and Philip becoming a zombie. And Penelope plays this part superbly. You just look at this woman and she looks like the kind of person that you would want to have a conversation with. Bill Nighy plays Philip, Shaun's stepdad, another actor who would continue on to play characters in the Cornetto trilogy. And Philip is the strict stepdad who's always pushing Shaun to do better, but he comes across as kind of the bad guy in Shaun's eye. But just before he becomes a zombie in the film, yeah, that's kind of a spoiler for those who haven't seen it yet, he starts to show his true colours and why he's been so hard on Shaun all these years. It's just some great character development for him. Then there's Liz's friends Diane and David, the two friends that joined Shaun and the gang on their quest to survive the zombie apocalypse. Diane is sort of like a drama teacher, as was shown when she teaches everyone to walk and act like a zombie to get to the Winchester without being noticed. And David is the stick-in-the-mud asshole type character who's always been such a bastard about Shaun's plans and his methods. He always comes across to me as the sort of guy who just tags along even though you don't really want him around. And Dylan Moran plays the part superbly in my opinion. Then there's Shaun and Ed's flatmate Pete, played by Peter Serafinowicz. I'm not sure if I said that right. An actor who previously worked with Pegg and Frost on Spaced, a TV show written by Edgar Wright. Pete is the no-nonsense flatmate of the two, who takes no nonsense from their shenanigans, as was shown the night before he becomes a zombie when he's seriously pissed off about them playing electro at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you could say that he's the one that persuades Shaun to sort his life out, as right after the conversation Shaun writes a list of what to do the next day. go visit Mum, get Liz back, and sort his life out. So even though Pete was being a complete bastard about the whole thing and saying things that he probably shouldn't have, you could say that he was the one that drove Shaun to try and sort his life out. Which is quite ironic considering the fact that he played Simon Pegg's character's rival in Spaced. And speaking of Spaced, this movie was actually inspired by an episode of Spaced where the main character, played by Simon Pegg, hallucinates the zombie apocalypse after playing a video game. I mean, who would have guessed that a joke from a TV series episode made by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg would eventually be turned into a big screen movie? It's crazy, man. But you can't have a good zombie movie without the zombies themselves, which are pretty much every minor character that appeared in the background before the apocalypse happened. And they're your typical zombies that moan, groan, stumble as they walk and can't really do much besides grab you and eat you and all that stuff. And this is just the typical zombie thing that you'd expect. And every single extra in this movie, as well as the main actors, just do a superb job at playing these zombies. And another interesting fact is that Space fans actually got the opportunity to play as zombies in the movie. What? Yeah, from what I heard, the Space fan site and Edgar Wright actually gave the fans a chance to be zombies in the movie. And that's a really cool thing to do, like get some fans in on the movie action and get them to play something that's been made by two of their heroes. That's really nice when you stop and think about it. The movie also has a great way of building up these intense scenes that make it seem like something bad's going to happen, and then occasionally throwing something comedic in there that you wouldn't expect. Like the scene when Shaun and Ed are shouting upstairs to Pete to see if he's alright. The music is just so intense and just builds up like something bad's going to happen, like he's going to come out as a zombie.
Pete! Oi, prick!
That cracks me up every single time.
Right.
And I'm sure, like a lot of other people who watch this movie, every time I hear Don't Stop Me Now from Queen on the radio, this movie is the first thing that comes to mind because of the bar fight when it randomly plays on the jukebox. And the way they attack the zombies and keeping them beat to the music is super hilarious. Like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead is one of those movies where when you watch it loads of times over and over, you start to notice things that you wouldn't have noticed in the past. Like one of my favourites, it's Shaun's shop routine where he goes to the shop to get a drink before work. And then during the zombie apocalypse when he goes back again to get himself a drink and a cornetto. And for Ed. Another interesting fact is that cornettos were actually based off of Edgar Wright's hangover cure when he was younger. What? Yeah, in a Blu-ray extra it was said by Edgar Wright himself that a cornetto used to help him get over his hangovers. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? And the scene plays out exactly like it did in the earlier scene when Shaun goes to the shop before going to work. Except with a few differences. Like he doesn't come across the boy kicking a football at him, he doesn't wave at Pete as he's driving to work, he doesn't give the homeless guy any change, he doesn't almost get run over by a car, but for the most part it is similar to the first encounter. And it's just super hilarious to me how oblivious he is to the zombies around him and every zombie apocalyptic thing that goes on, because all he's interested in is getting his hangover cure. That is intense and super hilarious at the same time.
What's he do? Just say bass. Or freeze. What a tip.
Another thing I love is how earlier in the film their roommate Pete is annoyed that Shaun keeps leaving the door open. And then during the apocalypse a zombie comes in through the open door which persuades Shaun to say, okay, I'm going to actually lock the door this time. And this movie is just chopped with so many hidden references and jokes that you'd have to watch it several times to get them all. It even has jokes and references that would appear in the later films, like an arcade game that always appears in a pub, and the always hilarious French joke. And as I said, Nick Frost's character's abilities to predict what's going to happen later on in the films. The movie even gives Coldplay members a cameo in the film. One band member appears as a zombie, and then later on at the end they appear on TV funding Zombaid. And on the DVD extras there's a little extra clip of the surviving members of the band hiring two new members played by Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And even let the band sing a version to Everybody's Happy Nowadays for the film's end credits. That is just brilliant that they could get this popular band to be part of this movie. Another not so subtle reference to space is the fact that Jessica Hines plays a character in Shaun of the Dead. She plays one of Shaun's best friends in the film. And that's just a great parody of how she and Simon Pegg's character used to be mates in Spaced. It's just one of those hilarious moments that could tie in Spaced and the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy into the same universe. And there are so many hilarious things about this movie that I could just go on and on talking about. But there's so much that I'd probably have to do like a top 10 list for it or something. But every one of them is super hilarious. What I also love about this movie is how in the final act it manages to fit in a lot of emotionally sad moments. Yeah, of course it's a comedy, but when you have a movie with zombies, you've got to have some tragic moments in there, like loss of loved ones and all that. And this movie manages to find a perfect mix of comedy and tragic moments. That's just great writing on Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright's behalf. And this movie was so popular that Phineas and Ferb would make a parody of it, even guest starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost to reprise their roles as Shaun and Ed. I mean, that's just crazy that an adult horror movie would end up being the subject of parody in a kids show, even getting the characters and actors themselves to be in that episode. That's wild and super hilarious at the same time. So I really don't know what to say about Shaun of the Dead that everybody else hasn't said already, apart from that it's a great comedy film and a great way to start the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy. Shaun of the Dead is one of the greatest horror comedies I've ever seen, and if it wasn't for this film we may not have gotten the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy. It's the perfect film to watch around Halloween time and any other time of the year. And if you haven't seen this film yet, I would definitely check it out before you watch any of the other Cornetto films, Hot Fuzz and The World's End. You'll get a lot of laughs and great zombie apocalypse action out of it. I'm Dalek44. Now if you'll excuse me. There's a couple of undead pricks out there and they did a good smashing on the head.
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. Last week during October, after work on Wednesday, I was checking my Facebook page on my phone, and I came upon this bit of news. It was from the Bristol Post, saying that filming for Doctor Who was spotted on the Clifton Suspension Bridge, which is an iconic part of my hometown, Bristol. Now already that was all very exciting to have the Doctor Who team come back to film in Bristol as they've done in the past. But then, a little while after, something else came up relating to that story. Then a second news report I spotted went on to saying that Daleks were spotted on the suspension bridge as it was closed for inspection. Oh my god, the Daleks were actually being filmed in Bristol on the suspension bridge? That's awesome news for a Bristolian like me. I dived into this story more and more and found that more news websites were talking about it. Even Twitter was saying how someone ran across the bridge to film the Daleks while they were preparing for filming, and even got to take some pictures of them filming on set. I'm pretty sure that the team may have intended this to be kept stum like they did with the Dalek in Resolution. But with social media and fans with their iPhones, it's really hard to keep things a secret nowadays. We see some bronze Daleks in formation with a brand new Dalek. Obviously I was already hyped to see the bronze Daleks back since they're my favourite design for the Daleks ever since the show came back in 2005. But when I spotted the new Dalek design along with them, it made me think back to the New Year special Resolution. Yeah, when you take a real good look at that new Dalek, it really does look very similar to the Reconnaissance Dalek from the New Year special Resolution. Yeah, it really does look very, very similar to the Reconnaissance Dalek from Resolution. But when you take a good closer look at it, it looks less like it was built out of bits of old junk and spare parts and whatnot. And it looks like a nice glossy black Dalek. Quite similar to Dalek Sec from the Cult of Skaro, one of my favourite Daleks of all time.
Now, since you only see this one Dalek among the bronze Daleks at the moment, it looks like it could be a new design of Dalek, like a special type of rank. Or since it looks like the Reconnaissance Dalek from Resolution, it is possible that this is what the Reconnaissance Dalek actually would look like if it was made on Skaro. But either way, it's a really awesome design. And when you look at other pictures of the bronze Daleks, you see some of them equipped with the claw that the Reconnaissance Dalek had in Resolution. Almost like in Part Into the Ways when the Dalek had a claw that was used to cut through a door. Now, some people would probably miss the plunger that the Daleks would usually have, but I honestly think this is a nice change since the Daleks are known to have different weapons besides their plungers. Like the Dalek with a cutting tool from the Part Into the Ways, and the Daleks that were in the Dungeon of the Crucible with Davros. Now obviously we had no idea what those instruments would actually do, but they looked really awesome. So it's really cool to see Daleks come back with a new weapon that makes a difference from the plunger. It's just a nice change. Now, classic villains coming back to the show was no surprise to us, since very early they revealed that the Judoon were coming back for an episode with Jodie Whittaker, a monster that was introduced during the David Tennant years during Russell T Davies' time as head writer. And then later on we got some news that the Cybermen might be coming back with a new redesign thanks to some film pictures that a fan made. Very blurry pictures that I couldn't find, but they do look like Cybermen and it looks like it could be getting a new design for it. So now to have the Daleks come back, a third old villain, it's just really great news to me. Now some might say that this is probably a bit too soon since we had them in New Year's Day, but I honestly don't mind the Daleks coming back. And if it is an episode that's set in Bristol, then it would be really awesome to me. One of the reasons I'm really excited about this is because I'm Bristolian myself, and I've been a Dalek and Doctor Who fan for years. So seeing that they're filming a Dalek episode in my hometown of Bristol is just really exciting news. It also looks like this episode will see the Daleks invading Earth once again. Now this would be really awesome to me since we haven't seen the Daleks actually invading Earth since the Stolen Earth and Journey's End, when they stole Earth along with other planets to power the Crucible's reality bomb. Because most Dalek episodes we've seen since Stephen Moffat took over was just them hatching new schemes to destroy the Doctor and rebuild their armies. So it would be really nice to see the Daleks attempt to invade Earth again, since that's what we'd love to see them try to do. Another reason that I got excited was I was looking through some old pictures from my old college days, and I may have actually predicted the Daleks coming to Bristol. Back in 2008, when I was starting art college, I did a drawing of Daleks flying over Bristol with Davros, as if they were invading the city. So if this episode is set in Bristol, then it may be possible that I actually predicted the Daleks invading Bristol. So years before this actually happened, it's quite shocking and surprising that I might have actually predicted the Daleks invading Bristol. That's crazy, I know. So whether or not this episode will be set in Bristol, I still think it's awesome that the Daleks are coming back in full form. So whether this is going to be a special for this Christmas or a finale for Series 12, I'm really excited to see how it turns out. And whether the bronze Daleks are going to stick around for a long time, or whether this new Dalek that we've seen is going to take over from their design, we'll have to wait and see. But either way, I'm really excited to see the Daleks come back for Doctor Who, and I look forward to when the episode airs on TV. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Oh man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. Superheroes have been a huge part of our lives since ever. We've all seen superheroes at some point in our lives, in our childhoods. Whether it be from comic books, TV shows, or movies, superheroes were usually a huge part of our childhoods, whatever generation we were from. And one of the most recent kid-friendly superhero franchises is PJ Masks. PJ Masks is an animated children's television series produced by Entertainment One, Frogbot, and Team TO. The series was based on the Les Pajares books from France. So how does the show work in terms of a superhero show? Well, to understand it a bit more, we'll have to look at the show itself. The show centres around three school kids, Greg, Connor and Amaya, who become a superhero team known as the PJ Masks when night falls in order to fight enemies and rivals such as Romeo, Luna Girl and Night Ninja to keep them from ruining people's day. Greg becomes Gecko, a gecko, Connor becomes Catboy, a cat, and Amaya becomes Owlette, an owl. And today they never lose and always save the day. In the night. Now, children being superheroes is nothing new. We've seen it before in other films and TV shows like The Incredibles. Rather than have it be a family of supers like, say, The Incredibles, the whole thing is basically kids as superheroes fighting kids that are supervillains. There's also a huge range of interesting characters in the show, including Connor, aka Catboy, the leader of the group, who has super cat hearing ears that makes him able to see things that are far away from him, can leap high and far using super cat jump, and sprints fast using super cat speed. When on a mission, he sometimes likes to narrate his own actions. His main flaws are his impulsiveness and his need to control, flaws that can be exploited by the team's opponents. His vehicle is the cat car located in the middle segment of the PJ Masks tower. Amaya, aka Owlette, is the only female member of the PJ Masks. She has owl eyes that let her see things that are far away up close. She also has super owl wind, which can blow her villains out of sight, and she has the power of flight. Her vehicle is the Owl Glider, which can also do a super owl wind move. As I've looked over the show more and more for research, I've noticed that a lot of Owlette's body poses seem to be quite flirty in my opinion. I mean, it might just be me, but it just looks quite flirty to me. Now, I'm pretty sure this wasn't intentional, but a lot of Owlette's body moves seem very flirty in my opinion. I guess it's mainly because of the way she's animated. I mean, when you look at some other female characters in the show, they don't seem to have skinny arms and legs like Owlette does. So it's mainly to do with the way she's animated that makes her look kind of flirtier here and there. But like I said, I doubt that was intentional. And I think she's my favourite character in the group, even though I'm not a huge fan of PJ Masks myself. But I think it's because of how cute she is and her adorable voice that's done by Addison Holly, a very proud Canadian. It's also very interesting how her capes are like owl feathers, which suits the owl that she's based on. And I think we all know what Owlette's suit would have been like if Edna Mode had her way.
Nuggets!
Greg, aka Gecko's powers are super gecko and camouflage, which makes him go invisible or blend into his surroundings. Super Gecko muscles, aka super muscles, to lift heavy things, Super Lizard grip to climb walls or anchor himself to stop vehicles, and Super Lizard water run to walk on water. His vehicle is the Gecko Mobile, that can also climb up walls just like him. There's an ongoing joke in the theme song of the show about how he can't think of a rhyme for fighting crime. So he unintentionally made a rhyme for crime. That's hilarious. But what good are these superheroes if they don't have any villains to fight? And this show gives them plenty. The villains of the show include Romeo, a mad scientist who comes up with a variety of inventions from his mobile lab and dislikes the PJ Masks. And I consider him to be like the egotistical mad scientist that you see in a lot of kids shows these days. Someone who's very proud of how smart he is and will come up with any kind of invention to take over the world, no matter how silly or cartoonish they may be. Romeo is always accompanied by his robot sidekick named Robot. Very unimaginative, I know, but eh. Robot's the typical lackey who does his master's bidding and acts like a typical robot. And he's also one of the funniest characters in the show with his robotic antics. There's Luna Girl, whose main weapons are her Luna Board and Luna Magnet that she uses as a mode of transportation. She's basically the spoiled brat villain who likes everything she sees and just wants to take stuff for herself, no matter what it be. Toys, valuable objects, you name it. And despite being a villain of the PJ Masks, she has teamed up with them in defeating Romeo in a number of occasions. It's even been said that she starts a friendship with Gecko in Gecko Saves Christmas and has a slight crush on him. But whether that develops in the show or not, we'll have to wait and see. So she's the sort of villain that will always go head to head with the PJ Masks whenever she can, but does team up with them when it suits her interests. Luna Girl is always joined by her swarm of moths, who are her minions. Even though they do her bidding, they really do dislike the way she treats them from time to time. The third main villain of the show is Night Ninja, a ninja with his team of ninjalinos who go about ruining people's day by gloating about how marvellous and evil he is. He likes to deface things to match his knightly image, and much like how Luna Girl often teams up with the PJ Masks, Night Ninja has often teamed up with Romeo against the heroes. But their different personalities always get in the way and prevent them from winning. His ninjalinos are small purple ninjas that talk in their own silly language. Their numbers vary from episode to episode, from as little as 3 to well over a dozen. As the show went into its second season and third season, they started to introduce more characters to the show, including PJ Robot, a robot that Romeo created to infiltrate PJ Masks' HQ. However, PJ Robot decided to be a PJ Masks rather than the villain's sidekick. He joined the team in Season 2 and spends most of his time inside HQ as mission control for the PJ Masks. There's Armadillo, an armadillo-like boy who wants to be a hero, but his being inexperienced causes him to mess up. And every time he shows up, the PJ Masks are always there to help him become a better hero. But he can be easily manipulated by other villains, including Romeo, and doesn't always know right from wrong. But luckily the PJ Masks are always there to help him out and guide him in the right direction. It's Anne Yu, a samurai girl who uses a magic flute as a weapon or to fly. She's a local resident of Mystery Mountain in the show, and has helped out the PJ Masks on a number of occasions whenever Night Ninja attempted to take over. The second season also brought us a new team of villains known as the Wolfie Kids, a trio of werewolf siblings named Rip, Howler and Kevin who ride in a car called the Wolf Wheels. They basically go about making a mess of things and stealing things that they want a lot. They even attempted to steal PJHQ at one point. I sort of see the Wolfie Kids as like the gothy kind of kids that go around ruining everybody's fun and taking things for themselves. Except they don't speak in gothy type voices. There was also Motsuki, voiced by Tress MacNeille.
Amazing, marvelous, stupendous, colossal, tremendous, gigantic, astounding, unbelievable, spectacular, phenomenal! And it's good, too.
The first moth to go to the moon with Luna and receive her own powers from her master in Moon Madness. She has the power to send someone in the lunar fortress on the moon, and can also shoot moonbeams from her antennas to trap her victims. She turns into a more anthropomorphic and more powerful moth in Moth on the Moon. Following her transformation, she becomes less loyal and enjoys annoying her sister, but she still loves her. And I found it amazing to find out that Tress MacNeille herself voiced Motsuki. The show currently airs on Disney Junior and Tiny Pop here in the UK. What also makes this show stand out for the audience it's targeted for is the morals that they put in each episode. Yeah, in every episode, the PJ Masks, either one of them or two of them or even all of them, learn a valuable lesson at the end, which is really good to teach kids. Like, don't be jealous of someone else, always forgive someone no matter how annoying they can be, don't be impatient, and all that stuff. These sorts of messages would just be shoved down children's throats in most kids' shows and movies these days. But this one does it really subtly and in a way that isn't shoved in your faces. So it's a really good show to show kids if you want to teach them valuable lessons like this. And each episode has a moral that's similar to the kind of things that children go through nowadays. Another thing I love about this is that to me it seems like it takes inspiration from the 1960s Batman show with Adam West. Mainly because of the characters' various catchphrases, the transitions that show the character's symbols similar to the Bat transition whenever there's a transition going on, silly wacky antics and wacky villains and all that sort of stuff. So it's like a toddler-friendly version of the Adam West Batman show, without Batman, and any of the other Batman characters.
Well, obviously.
So in conclusion, PJ Masks is a really entertaining children's show that I would recommend for any children. It's got great characters, great storylines, great morals and lessons to teach your kids, and it's just got great animation as well.
PJ Masks is definitely one of those kids shows that's wacky, fun, and a lot of kids will get a lot of fun out of it. I suppose some adults who love Disney cartoons will get a few kicks from it too. So if you have kids or know someone that has kids, then I would definitely introduce them to PJ Masks. It's a kids show that deserves watching from children in this generation, and it's one of the best children's shows of this generation for young toddlers. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. It's Christmas! That's right everybody, it's that time of year again. Christmas, my favourite time of the year. The time of season on earth, goodwill to all men, and showing everyone you care by exchanging presents. But not everyone in the world always has a good time at Christmas. Some people are just complete Scrooges about the whole thing, and others don't see the joy in the holiday because they associate it with a bad time. But not everybody has a good time around this time of year. And one of the best examples of those people is the Grinch himself. The Grinch, also known as Dr. Seuss's The Grinch, is a 2018 American 3D computer-animated Christmas film produced by Illumination, the company that bought us Secret Life of Pets, Secret Life of Pets 2, and the Despicable Me films. It was based on the book How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss, and it's the third screen adaptation of the story, following the television special in 1966 by Chuck Jones, and the live-action feature film from 2000 starring Jim Carrey. Can this movie be as memorable as the original Chuck Jones cartoon was? Well, let's find out. In the town of Whoville, the human-like creatures called Whos are filled with excitement about celebrating Christmas. However, the only one who is not amused is a cantankerous and green-furred creature named the Grinch, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who has a heart that is 2 sizes too small and lives in a cave on top of Mount Crumpet, just north of Whoville. Meanwhile, 6-year-old Cindy Lou Who notices that her mother Donna is overworked trying to take care of herself and her twin baby brothers, Buster and Bean. Initially decided to send a letter to Santa Claus to help her mother, Cindy encounters the Grinch. He sarcastically tells her that she'll have to talk to Santa face to face about it. She attempts to go to the North Pole to talk to Santa, but when Donna tells her that it would take months to travel there, she instead decides to trap Santa with the help of her friends. With Christmas approaching, a bungled attempt by the Grinch to ruin her tree lighting ceremony causes him to have a flashback about his childhood spent alone and unwanted in an orphanage. He acquires a fat reindeer, whom he calls Fred, and steals a sleigh from his neighbour, Mr. Brickleball. After a test run, the Grinch discovers that Fred has a family, and agrees to let Fred go home with them. On Christmas Eve, after making a Santa disguise and crafting dozens of gadgets to help him with his plan, the Grinch and his pet dog Max, who pulls the sleigh in Fred's place, go down to Whoville to steal the decorations and presents. And we all know how the story ends from there.
Well, obviously.
So how is the 2018 adaptation of The Grinch? It's not really up there with the Chuck Jones cartoon, but it's still better than the Jim Carrey version. While it's in no way better than the original Chuck Jones cartoon, it's way better than the Jim Carrey film, mainly because it doesn't have the issues that the live-action film had. Like pretty much everyone except Cindy Lou Who in Whoville being complete assholes to the Grinch. And to be honest, Jim Carrey was the only saving part of the film, even though it wasn't enough to save the film. But this one doesn't have any hate-filled Whos in it, it just has a nice town that's full of people that love Christmas. One advantage that this version has that the Jim Carrey version didn't have is the fact that it's all done in CGI. so it blends itself more into Dr. Seuss's world.
The Grinch himself, voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch, is a green furry creature who hates Christmas. In the original story, it's never really mentioned why he hates Christmas in the first place, even though they do give a few possible reasons, like say the size of his shoes or the size of his heart. They never explain what made him hate Christmas in the first place. And in the live-action film, they made it that he was ridiculed and made fun of by the kids of Whoville. But in this one, it takes a more personal backstory by saying that he was abandoned and alone in an orphanage every year when he was a child. And that was the reason he hated Christmas, because he didn't associate it with a good time. While it's not what Dr. Seuss wrote in the book, it does give a pretty good explanation to why he hates Christmas so much.
Benedict Cumberbatch just plays the part of the Grinch superbly in this version. And I just love his grouchy American voice that he puts on for the character. It just fits him.
There's Cindy Lou Who, voiced by Cameron Seeley, a young resident of Whoville who wants to send a letter to Santa Claus and get him to help his mum. Cindy Lou Who was given a larger part in this movie compared to the other versions. I mean a larger part that was tolerable. In the original film, she had a small part where she spotted the Grinch stealing the Christmas tree and he had to lie to her about why she was taking it in the first place. And in the live-action film, she was the one that helped change the Grinch's heart. And this movie gives Cindy a bigger motivation by having her want to meet Santa to get his assistance on helping her mother Donna, since she's overworked.
Cindy Lou Who's thing about trying to catch Santa to make her Christmas wish come true just really seems to me like a plot device to make the story a bit longer. But it's not a terrible plot device, by all means, it's just a plot device.
Along with having this trying to get Santa Claus to help out her mother role, Cindy Lou has also had an age change compared to the original story. In the original story, as well as the Chuck Jones short, she was no more than 2, whereas in the movie she's 6 years old. Now, I've got nothing against that change, because it just makes it more interesting for the kids to root for a character that's 6 years old. And while there's nothing wrong with having a main character that's no more than 2 years old, most stories just seem more interesting when they seem to have children that are older than that. There's Max, the Grinch's loyal dog, who sticks by his side no matter what. And I've heard some people complain that Max in the Grinch kinda looks like Max from Secret Life of Pets. And from seeing both characters side by side, and the fact that it's done by the same company, I can see their point. I mean, they could have at least made Max look a little bit different to Max from Secret Life of Pets. Like perhaps making him look similar to what the dog looked like in the original story. The other characters include Brinklebaum, the jolly bearded citizen of Whoville who lives next to the Grinch, and he's basically just the cheerful, jolly guy that a lot of people live next door to. He's just the sort of bloke that most people know and either like or dislike because of their niceness. And there's also Gobbert, Axel, Ozzy, and Izzy, Cindy Lou's friends. Cindy Lou's overworked single mother Donna who's one of those kind and loving mothers who lives with just the 3 kids and does her best to keep up with everything. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. And the mayor of Whoville is voiced by legendary actress Angela Lansbury.
Something I never expected to see in The Grinch when I went to see it last year was Angela Lansbury's voice coming out of the mayor of Whoville. That was just a great surprise to me.
And when they started the scene where they did the Christmas light switch on, I was saying to my mother, "Is that Angela Lansbury?" And as we listened more and more to it, we were like, "Oh my god, that is Angela Lansbury!" It's just amazing that despite her age, Angela still gets a lot of film roles. And the narrator of the movie is played by Pharrell Williams. And that's quite a change from the previous incarnations, since How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Chuck Jones was narrated by Boris Karloff, and the live-action film was narrated by Anthony Hopkins. Now these two had really nice, charming voices that you could just shut your eyes and just imagine them telling the stories without even having to look at the pictures. But the narrator in this movie just sounds like a rapper. It just doesn't have the same charm as the previous narrators did. But because he doesn't really talk a lot compared to the other versions, I can tolerate it. And obviously this wouldn't be a Grinch movie without the song You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. But did they really have to make it a rap song?
You're a mean one. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a catfish, or as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch.
And the movie's CGI is just spectacular in my opinion. It just blends itself really well to Seuss's world, compared to doing it in live action. And I absolutely adore the layout of Whoville. It just looks like a gingerbread house layout. And when you look at it from a distance in a movie like, say, from the Grinch's cave, or just an overall look at the place, it just looks like a huge gingerbread village. And it just adds to the whimsicalness of this adaptation of the story. Another thing I love about this movie is that it takes its time for the Grinch to put his plan together. Like with the original cartoon, it was sort of rushed out in one whole day, but in this one it just takes his time in a few days for the Grinch to put his plan together, piece by piece. Like, we see the various stages he goes through to plan his heist of Christmas. Like reading books about how Christmas works, how to be Santa Claus, and he even goes out of his way to try and kidnap a reindeer to use to pull his sleigh. And he ends up getting a fat one named Fred, who uses the sleigh from his neighbour. But after the Grinch discovers that Fred has a family, he agrees to let Fred go home with them. Which gives us a new reason to why Max pulls the sleigh. And of course, he made a better effort with the Santa Claus outfit, bringing in a beard as well as the hat and coat. Because in the original, as well as the Chuck Jones cartoon and the live action version, it's just a hat and a coat, nothing really to disguise his face. But in this one he puts more effort into it by giving himself a beard. And I just love how they wrote it out, how he made his plan work piece by piece. And when the Grinch starts stealing Christmas, that's when the most creative moments begin. I mean, all these gadgets and wacky contraptions that he comes up with to help him steal the presents and treats and Christmas trees from every home in Whoville is just so imaginative and creative, and it's just a joy to watch. It's honestly one of the best moments throughout the entire movie. And my major nitpick with this scene was the fact that they didn't use You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch as the montage music for it like they did with the Chuck Jones cartoon, because they had to replace it with a rap version of the song in the beginning. Yeah, I still don't get why they made the song a rap in this movie, but it doesn't come close to ruining this creative moment. And there are some running gags in this movie that are either funny or not so funny. The funniest one for me being the Screaming Goat, which is an obvious reference to the Screaming Goat video on the internet. If you've never watched the teaser trailers for this movie, then you wouldn't have seen this character coming. And even if you've known about it from the trailers, you still get a laugh out of it, because it's just so unexpected when it shows up.
Oh, hey there. Sorry, little goat. I was calling for a ring. What was that? Scrap! Skedaddle! Strange goat.
And it only shows up in the movie 4 times, so the joke isn't overused, which can be a huge flaw with comedies, using a joke so many times that it gets really old really fast. But here they don't fall into that trap and just use it at the right moments.
Will you stop following us? Shoo! Away! Go back to the goat farm. Go eat a can.
So in conclusion, The Grinch isn't as good as the Chuck Jones adaptation of the story, but it is better than the 2000 live-action version. It has a nice, whimsical feeling about it that you expect to see in Christmas movies, and it's one of the better adaptations of Dr. Seuss's story, coming second place and right behind the original Chuck Jones cartoon, with some great acting from Benedict Cumberbatch, Andrew Lansbury, the list goes on. It has a few moments that aren't completely funny, but it does make up for it with his funny jokes and the whimsical moments and his soft-hearted moments. And it's a nice little expansion to the original story. So while The Grinch isn't exactly up there with Chuck Jones's version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, it's still the best cinema adaptation of The Grinch by far. So The Grinch is a good enough adaptation to the story. I just don't think it's up there with the original 1966 Chuck Jones cartoon. So if you want a movie that would get you into the Christmas spirit, then The Grinch is definitely one to watch. It's a very good adaptation to Dr. Seuss's original story, and it's just one of those nice Christmas movies that really gets you into the season. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'd highly recommend checking it out if you're a Christmas lover. It's got a lot of whimsical and light-hearted moments that will really get you into the Christmas season. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Stop following us!
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I've got one anyway. More familiar with Postman Pratt, right?
That delightful children's programme that ran from 1981 to today, with TV shows, various specials, and a big screen movie done in CGI. The show was done in stop-motion animation by director Ivor Wood, and is still considered to be one of the greatest children's television programmes to this day.
But I'm not going to be talking about the show tonight, as I've done in the past with the movie and my top 10 episodes. Tonight I'm going to be talking about a little skit I saw called Temporary Postman Pratt.
Temporary Postman Pratt, Temporary Postman Pratt, Temporary Postman Pratt, and his student overdraft. Temporary Postman Pratt, Temporary Postman Pratt, Temporary Postman Pratt, and his temporary Christmas job.
Temporary Postman Pratt was a little sketch made by the BBC comedy Spitting Image, which was usually known for its political satire. But during one episode they did this little skit based on the TV series Postman Pratt. Now for years I had no idea that this was done by Spitting Image, because it was just mentioned as Temporary Postman Pratt when it was uploaded on YouTube. But over the years it's gained quite a following for its humour.
How funny can this little skit about a harmless children's show be? Let's dive right into it.
The opening of the short starts off simple enough, with a little narration from a nice lady.
Now it's time for Temporary Postman Pratt.
Theme song that's very similar to the original theme song, but with changed lyrics so it matches the character created for this short.
Temporary Postman Pratt, Temporary Postman Pratt, Temporary Postman Pratt, and his student overdraft.
And then things start getting crazy when we enter the village of Greendale.
And his University of East Anglia student.
Funnily enough, that scene where he runs over the cat that looks like Jess reminds me of a little song me and my brother used to do when we were kids, making fun of the theme song. I don't exactly remember how it went, but it involved Pat running over the cat. Oh man, that's gonna bother me for ages.
And for those of you who may not spot it, the shop titled I Would is a reference to the show's original director Ivor Wood. Not exactly subtle, but you might miss it if you don't look carefully. And the craziness of the short doesn't end there. As soon as Temporary Postman Pratt starts this round, he starts doing things that the real Postman Pratt would never do. Like, watch this bit.
I wonder what Temporary Postman Pratt is doing over by the post box. That's right, he's putting all the post back into the box so he doesn't have to deliver it.
I wonder if some postmen in real life actually do that. That would be hilarious. Annoying, yes, but still hilarious.
Now, I have yet to see any postman that would do that in real life. But if they did, it would be super annoying to people as well as his employers. But it would be funny for comedy, though.
Temporary Postman Pratt has just delivered the...
That bit where he throws a snowball at what looks like Granny Dryden still cracks me up to this day.
Temporary Postman Pratt has just delivered the post for half of the village through the letterbox of a shop that's been empty for 6 months. And now he's delivering a second bag into the town's main sewer.
And if you look carefully here, you'll notice that the narrator forgot to mention that he put some letters into a nearby bin that was next to the town's main sewer. Again, it's just a hilarious subtle detail that you'd have to look really carefully to get first time round.
Blooming student, says Mrs. Groggins.
That is a typical student response to your elders, giving them the V.
And after all that hard work, what do you think Temporary Postman Pratt does at the end of the day? He goes back to his little student apartment, of course.
It's been a busy day for Temporary Postman Pratt. No wonder he's exhausted. Humping those heavy sacks of mail onto the top of his wardrobe can be very tiring.
Yes, because putting sacks of letters on the top of your wardrobe is so tiring.
And then it ends with a longer version of that delightful parodied song of the theme song, as well as some more crazy images of what happens when Temporary Postman Pratt makes his way out of Greendale.
Temporary Postman Pratt and his student rail card, and his Jesus and Mary Jane albums, and Presidency of Air Club film sock, and his Jumbo New Street A4 notepad with a picture of Karl Marx on the front, and his Rag Mac sock sec duties, and his Carmen milk on the window ledge.
All these years later, and I still have no idea half of the things he said in that.
Temporary Postman Pratt and his temporary Christmas job.
See you at the same time next year, Temporary Postman Pratt.
And that was Temporary Postman Pratt from Spitting Image. A hilarious adult take on the classic cartoon, in my opinion.
This short is a short that I've been watching around Christmas time for years now, and the more I look back on it, it's still as hilarious as it was when I was first introduced to it during my college years. It's a delightful little parody of Postman Pat that's sure to get a little giggle or laugh out of you if you watch it, especially if you're into this kind of humour. If you haven't seen this one yet, I definitely recommend it around Christmas time, especially if you're a lover of Postman Pat. It may offend you if you're a fan of the show, or it may just make you laugh like hell. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Temporary Postman Pat and his student rail card, and his Jesus and Mary Chain albums, and presidency of Mail Club film sock, and his jumbo loosely A4 notepad with a picture of Karl Marx on the front, and his rag mag sock sec duties, and his carton of milk on the window ledge. Temporary Postman Pat and his temporary Christmas job.
Temporary Postman Pratt has just delivered the...
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. Well, Christmas 2019 has come to an end, and I've got all the presents I asked for on my Christmas list. But the one thing we usually do get on Christmas that we didn't get this year was a Doctor Who Christmas special.
Ever since Doctor Who was revived in 2005, they'd always had a Christmas special on Christmas Day. This lasted until 2017's Twice Upon a Christmas. And last year and this year we had no Doctor Who Christmas specials, as last year's was replaced with the New Year's Day special Resolution, and this year we're just not getting one at all.
This is really important to me because I've been a Doctor Who fan since 2005 when David Tennant came in for the Christmas Invasion. And since then, many specials of Doctor Who have come on the 25th of December.
The Christmas specials have had many crazy adventures that usually took place on Christmas. From a Sycorax invasion along with killer robot Santas in the Christmas Invasion, facing off the Empress of Arachnos underneath the Thames in the Runaway Bride, stopping the Titanic in space from destroying the Earth in Voyage of the Damned, facing against the Cybermen in Victorian London in The Next Doctor, attempting to prevent the end of time as well as dealing with the return of the Master in The End of Time Part 1 and Part 2, taking on the role of the Ghost of Christmas Past, Present and Future in A Christmas Carol, spending Christmas with a wartime family and a special alien surprise in The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, dealing with the Great Intelligence and his army of killer snowmen and the Snowmen, an all-out war against everything that ever hated the Doctor in the time of the Doctor, meeting Santa Claus played by Nick Frost in Last Christmas, presumably the last ever meeting with River Son in The Husbands of River Son, a superhero coincided with an alien invasion in The Return of Dr. Mysterio, and the 12th Doctor played by Peter Capaldi encountering the 1st Doctor played by Bradley Walsh, replacing the late William Hartnell in Twice Upon a Time. And as I said last year, we got the New Year special Resolution, which saw the return of a Dalek. And this year we didn't get a Christmas special at all, or any special, as we're immediately going to get Series 12 on New Year's Day.
Having a Christmas special of Doctor Who every Christmas Day was just something for Whovians to really go to the telly on a Christmas Day night and just really enjoy for an hour or so.
The Christmas specials were sort of a yearly event for Doctor Who fans, or Whovians as they're called. It was something to look forward to on Christmas Day, just something for everyone to get around the TV and watch on a Christmas Day night. And one thing that appealed to these specials to the fans was the amount of action that went on in these specials with various alien invasions. As I mentioned, the Sycorax and the Killer Santas in the Christmas Invasion, another thing I really loved about these specials is that they didn't always take place in the present day. As we all know, the Christmas Invasion, the Runaway Bride, Voyage of the Damned and the End of Time Parts 1 and 2 all took place in present day England, whereas other specials like The Next Doctor took place in Victorian London, and some other specials took place on alien planets. And The Time of the Doctor was a special that didn't necessarily focus on Christmas Day. It just took place on a planet called Trenzalore in a town that was called Christmas. That, and we got to see Clara Oswald trying to cook a turkey dinner for the family. But one of the most memorable events of the Christmas specials, in my opinion, was Twice Upon a Time, where the two Doctors went to the First World War Christmas truce in 1914. It just reflects on this one day of the year where everyone just stopped fighting just to celebrate Christmas, something that never happened again afterwards. And the special did a great job of capturing that miracle that never happened again since then. Other highlights of it was getting to know new Doctors like, say, David Tennant, since the Christmas Invasion was his first full adventure after he became the Doctor in the end of the Parting of the Ways. But during the end of Series 4 and the departure of Russell T Davies and David Tennant, we got to see the departure of the present Doctors and the introduction of new Doctors. Say in the end of time we had the departure of David Tennant and the arrival of Matt Smith. Then in the time of the Doctor we saw the departure of Matt Smith and the arrival of Peter Capaldi. And in Twice Upon a Christmas we had the departure of Peter Capaldi and the introduction of Jodie Whittaker. And this became an ongoing thing in Doctor Who Christmas specials during the Stephen Moffat era. It was just something that really kept us watching these specials and wanted to see more of them every Christmas. Just the sort of adventures the Doctor and his/her companions could go through during Christmas. I bring this up because we haven't had a Christmas special from Doctor Who for 2 years. 2 bloody years! Though I suppose they did kind of make up for it last year with the New Year's special Resolution. And they are sort of making up for it this year by having the series start on New Year's Day. But still, 2 years without Doctor Who at Christmas. That's too bloody much if you ask me. And it's for these reasons why I really hope that they're going to do a Christmas special next year. Because it's a yearly event that brings Whovians together around the telly on Christmas Day. And as far as I know, there is a special lined up for Doctor Who Series 12, but it hasn't been confirmed if it's going to be a Christmas special yet or another yearly event. But I kind of have my suspicions that it's probably going to be a Christmas special, since that's what we all love in Doctor Who. So I strongly believe that we're hopefully going to get a Doctor Who Christmas special next year. And if we don't, grab your torch and pitchforks. And if you haven't seen any of these Christmas specials yet, I'd highly recommend checking them out. They're a fun watch for Whovians and even people who aren't Whovians around Christmas time. They have great action, great adventures, various alien occurrences, and a lot of fun with each Doctor. And around Christmas time, they're definitely worth checking out. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. Well, 2019 is soon coming to an end, and will soon be starting 2020. So before we end 2019, let's talk about something that a lot of people really love. Steamed hams.
Skinner with his crazy explanations. The superintendent's gonna need his medication. When he hears Skinner's lame exaggerations, there'll be trouble in town tonight.
Steamed Hams was a little segment from the Season 7 Simpson episode 22 Short Films About Springfield. It's centred around the relationship between Principal Seymour Skinner and Superintendent Chalmers. The scene has Skinner inviting Superintendent Chalmers to his house for lunch, but Skinner finds that he accidentally burnt his roast that he prepared, so he sneaks out the back window to Krusty Burger and disguises it as his own cooking, calling it steamed hams.
I thought we were having steamed clams.
No, I said steamed hams. That's what I call hamburgers.
Of course, Chalmers believes this story, but has his suspicions when he notices that they taste similar to Krusty Burger and that they're grilled despite being called steamed hams. Then when Skinner checks on the kitchen after they're eaten, Chalmers notices the glowing in the kitchen.
Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Aurora Borealis?
That's it?
No.
And just as Chalmers is about to leave the house, Skinner's mother yells out saying that the house is on fire. And Skinner tries to keep up his little lies until Chalmers finally leaves, and they have to call the fire brigade. When I was growing up, 22 Short Films About Springfield was one of my favourite Simpsons episodes. And the Skinner and Chalmers moment was one of my favourites from that particular episode too. It just showcases the relationship between these two characters, and it pitches it as their own show, like Superintendent Chalmers always has to deal with Skinner's antics. In fact, this little scene became so popular that it became a meme on the internet. How did this one scene between Skinner and Superintendent Chalmers get so popular enough to become a meme? I don't know, it just did. With people making GIFs about it, various memes on it, and people on YouTube making various edited editions of the short. Like, say, Skinner being honest about everything, Chalmers quick to know when Skinner is lying, and even setting these with different characters, like, say, the Super Mario Brothers, and there's one hilarious one with Banjo-Kazooie audio and music. So needless to say, this has become a very popular meme in the internet. All the different variations of how you could do steamed hams with various ways to do it is just so unbelievable these days. And having seen so many of these little skits on YouTube for myself, it's very unlikely that this meme is going to die out anytime soon. It's just so memorable and hilarious in my opinion. And it's so easy to memorise this scene and make some little parodies of it, because it's one of the most memorable moments from the golden age of The Simpsons.
Yes, and you call them steamed hams despite the fact they are obviously grilled.
And with how popular it is, it's very likely that we're going to get more skits and parodies of this little clip for years to come. Hell, I might even consider doing a second co-version of steamed hams.
Delightfully devilish.
So steamed hams is quite a funny Simpsons meme that I'm sure will be carrying on for many years to come. So steamed hams is a fun little skit between Superintendent Chalmers and Principal Skinner that's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it yet. And if you've already seen the original, I'd highly recommend checking out the little parodies of it on the internet. You're bound to love them as much as the original scene, and it's just one of those fun scenes from The Simpsons that won't be forgotten anytime soon. So check it out and see what you've been missing out on if you've missed out on it.
Well, Seymour, you are an odd fellow, but I must say, you steam a good ham.
Until next time, this is Dalek44 saying, cheerio 2019, and hello to 2020. Happy New Year, folks.
Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Aurora Borealis?